This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. You never know where we're going to be coming to you today from today or many days. But today, in fact, as you can see, is the lovely Terminal 1 at Pearson Airport on my way home from Game 2 of the World Series. The travel plans were made very quickly and very last minute, and there weren't many options to either get to Toronto or get home. So I'll be home a little later on today. We're going to have Connor and Remo join me right out of the gate. We will have Ed Tait. I'm looking forward to talking to Ed. And then Michael and Connor will hook up with Mike McIntyre a little bit later on for more on the Jets, who, of course, dropped 2 of the 3 at home over the last 4 days, including last night's loss to the Utah Mammoth before heading out to Minnesota tomorrow. So we'll get all the Jets talk with Mike a little bit later on, as well as right off the top of the show. And the guys will finish it off talking about tonight, Game 3 of the World Series, and, of course, Monday Night Football, Chiefs at Arrowhead hosting the Washington Commanders. And it is the sports equinox, so we'll have plenty to talk about later on when we hit the lines for our friends at Coolbet. Listen, just before we bring in the gang, do want to thank all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet, as well as the Winnipeg Jets. We're back in action. Don't forget the big Halloween game on Thursday. Jonathan Tait's first game against his former team, the Chicago Blackhawks. That's going to be a great one. Also want to thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer, St. Patel Dental Center, Canadian Club, Uptown Alley, Chud's Power Sports and Princess Auto, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We'll do a Why Not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray, and the guys will do some fan feedback for fans first a little bit later on the program as well. Just a couple quick things before we bring in the fellas. Tomorrow, Jets in action against Montreal, which means it is another day that you can take advantage of the McDonald's game day deals only on Jets game days and only through the McDonald's app. Fire up the app tomorrow to get your choice of the iconic Big Mac or a filet of fish for just $4.49 at your local McDonald's through the app all day long, every Jets game day, home or away. The other thing I want to remind you of is Thursday at midnight is the deadline for the HSC Millionaire Lottery to get your tickets for the early bird draw. Now, the early bird draw has 2 prizes at over $85,000. You got your choice of a BMW worth over $74 plus $26,000 in DigiNet travel vouchers, or you can take $85,000 cash. So 2 of those prizes will be given out, but you have to get your ticket by Thursday night at midnight. And of course, you'll also be in for the grand prize draws, which is your choice of one of 5 $1.5 million dream home packages, 4 in the greater Winnipeg area, 1 on Vancouver Island. And of course, the other option is just to say, show me the money like Jerry Maguire and take $1.25 million cash. You can get your tickets at hscmillionaire.com. You can pop by London Drugs or your local Red River Co-op. But in addition to being the next millionaire, massive early bird prizes still to be given away. Get your tickets by midnight on Thursday to count yourself in for the HSC Millionaire Lottery early bird drive. All right, let's get this show on the road and bring in the fellas, Michael Remis and Connor Rabchak. Of course, Connor doing post-game coverage for us, and we should give a shout-out to not Brandon Rowicki, but Tyson Rowicki, who popped on the program, did a great job with you, Connor. And fellas, what's going on? How was the weekend?
Weekend was good. Winnipeg Jets, 3 games. I had quite the weekend. I mean, 3 post-game shows, Sunday live, Sunday morning, and Bombers report. There was a Bomber game too. It was wild. And you throw the Blue Jays in there as well, Friday and Saturday night. There was no shortage of sports. If you were a Bombers, Jets, Blue Jays fan like myself, there were no shortage of sports to watch this weekend. There was so much, and just glad that we could get through it all. And Tyson Rewicki, pinch hitting. A lot of people, he said he gets comparisons to Addison Barger, like he looks like Addison Barger. I was like, well, this is great. Pinch hit grand slam, just like Barger. So yeah, it was awesome doing the post game with him, and we had a blast.
Hey, Remo, I know you had a lot going on the weekend. We had Jet games, we had World Series, but we would be remiss if there wasn't a special birthday to throw out from the big party yesterday. A big, long-time WST fan.
Yeah, big WST fan. She does watch occasionally on her iPad. It was my bubby's 90-something birthday. Well, it's officially today, so happy birthday, Bubby. Huge Jets fan. She watches the game, long time Bomber season ticket holder as well. Actually, 1 year for her birthday, I got her a Zach Collaros cameo, which she loved. So yeah, it was a big birthday yesterday. Big weekend. It is sports equinox today with NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB taking place. Only the 32nd ever sports equinox. So great time of year.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we'll get to tonight. I mean, there is so much on. I mean, listen, a lot of NBA games, only a couple in the National Hockey League, but Monday Night Football will be a big deal. I'll obviously be checking that out. But, guys, in Game 3 of the World Series tonight, Mad Max on the hill for the Blue Jays, who got to get one back after dropping Game 2, which, of course, is the reason why I am in a Jays jersey here sitting at Pearson Airport. Got to tell you, I mean, all-time sports experience to be able to be in the building in Toronto for that game. And, listen, would have loved to have seen the Jays win, but did get to see just an all-time pitching performance from Yoshinobu Yamamoto of the Dodgers. His second, it was back-to-back complete games. I believe the first time that's happened since Curt Schilling, like almost 25 years ago. And it was, it was a great game. It was really tight. Remis, many people are saying that game turned around. The turning point in the entire game was the performance of the Jonas Brothers after the 5th inning. There's my pal Jeff Feinberg. And by the way, I've got to tell you guys just a quick funny story. Hooked up with the Coolbet boys, Patty and Jake and Ange, just had an absolute riot with those guys. But if you recall on Thursday, JD Bunkus was on the program. And he said, I know you're going to be there. And I was kind of surprised he would just assume that I was going to be there. I guess someone had told him he was mixing up myself and the other Andrew at Coolbet that were going to be at the game. So I said, on the show, I'm not going to be there, but man, I would love to. And that sort of was my kick in the ass over the course of Thursday night to maybe see if there was a way I was going to be able to get there. And a huge shout out to my pal Greg over at Royal Sports. He worked some contacts and was able to get a pair of tickets at face value, because I don't think I was willing to swallow the $3 or $4K it was to get into the building in half decent seats. But we went out there and sit down in our seats in section 115, and I look and I realize JD Bunkus was in the seat in front of me. Literally in front of me, 50,000+ people in the building, and he was there. So that was a real fun moment. Obviously got to see Feinberg and the fellows. Tons of people were in. I mean, just our section alone, we had people from Hong Kong, lots of Japanese folks that had come all the way over from Japan, people from all over North America, and tons of Canadians from coast to coast. So, I mean, it was a special environment to be in. The game absolutely delivered the sort of World Series drama. The only thing that could have been better was if the Jays had won. And Remis, it now sets up an incredibly important game tonight in LA, the first of 3. And it's Mad Max, the former Dodger, the most experienced pitcher on the roster, getting his chance to once again show that he is ready for prime time in the World Series.
Yeah, I was giving myself a bit of a Barry Horowitz pat on the back after game one. You asked me, okay, well, how are the Blue Jays going to win? And I said, well, they grind out these at-bats. They take a lot of pitches. They take walks, foul it off. And that's exactly what the recipe was in game one. They got Blake Snell out of there early, having lengthy at-bats. They not swing at anything out of the zone, hardly, and got him out of the game and got to the bullpen and took advantage. Yamamoto, he was on his game on Saturday. No one was touching him. An all-time performance, complete game. You do not see that often, especially in the World Series. So that goes back tied 1-1. Max Scherzer, you got the question against Tyler Glasnow. The question is, which version of Scherzer are you going to get? I keep seeing, all the stats, flashes, all-time World Series numbers. I don't know how relevant those are to a 43-year-old Max Scherzer, but can he put it together? Can he use his knowledge of hitters? You see him teaching you Savage in the bullpen or in the dugout. Can he use it, and can he be on his game? So I think that is a huge question mark for the Blue Jays. This Dodgers lineup, you see it top to bottom. They can all hit, and they're going to have to try to get the same strategy. Try to get to Tyler Glasnow, make him throw strikes, don't swing at bad pitches, and get him out of the game early so you can get to this bullpen that is not the strongest. And that is the weakest part of the Dodgers team. I mean, like game one, like Emmett Sheehan, game one out of the bullpen. It didn't go well for them.
No, and we were all hoping that they would get to the bullpen. And Yamamoto, literally, Connor, just got better and better throughout the game. And I was telling Connor before we went on the air. In 2014, I was at that Royals-Giants game 6 and 7 of the World Series, and Madison Bumgarner was sort of like the boogeyman. He pitched game 1, he pitched game 5, and I'll never forget, they were getting into the 6th inning. It's a 2-1 game, and they had Timmy Smoke up in the bullpen, Lincecum, and Lincecum was no longer a Cy Young winner. He'd been moved to the bullpen. We're like, okay, great. And then all of a sudden, the name changes from Lincecum to Bumgarner, and he rolled out and pitched the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings of Game 7. And it was that sort of dominance it really felt like we were seeing at the Rogers Center on Saturday night. And Connor, because of how great, and maybe I'm just shook from sitting there watching this guy do what he did to the Jays on Saturday night. Like, if we're talking about the Jays winning this series, I really feel like they have to win 2 of the 3 games in LA and come back to Toronto with a lead in the series. Because, I mean, what Yamamoto's doing right now is sort of like peak Tarik Skubal. It's Garrett Crochet. It is so dominant that, you don't want it to come down to having to beat that guy to win the series. And if they had an out after game 6, that would be very nice that they could do it. But obviously, it's going to start with the old man, the crazy man, Psycho Mad Max, getting the start tonight in game 3.
Yeah, Psycho Mad Max. He's back on the mound. I'm excited for it. As for Yamamoto, Huss, I could not agree more that he was getting better as the game went on. Like, I feel like if that game went 17 innings somehow into extras and he threw 160 pitches, he would have just kept going. Like, he didn't lose any velocity on his fastball. He was locating everything all game long. And when the Blue Jays, who have made a World Series appearance off of going deep in counts, running up pitch counts, getting the bat to the ball, they don't whiff on pitches, even against the elite pitchers in the league. When you see them in a 3-2 count, look at a curveball down the middle because they're just so lost at the plate, or they see a fastball right at the top of the zone and take it, and it's obviously a strike. Like, you just don't see that from the Jays. You haven't seen it all year. You haven't seen it in the playoffs, but Yamamoto had them guessing in a way that I just haven't seen the Blue Jays guess so far this season. That was one of the most impressive pitching performances I've ever seen, no less in a World Series game. And yeah, the Jays almost got to him in the first inning. They had runners on the corners with no outs, didn't cash that in. They had runners on the corners in the third inning, cashed 1 run in. And it just felt, as that game was going on, got to give a shout out to Kevin Gausman as well, who was dealing. It just felt like the next run was going to win that game. Whoever went up 2-1, Will Smith hits the solo shot. And from that point, with Yamamoto getting better, Sasaki was up, ready to go in the 9th, but why would you throw him in? Yamamoto was like I said, had the Blue Jays lost, and that was just an incredible pitching performance, and the Dodgers kind of ran away with it late.
Reem, let me ask you this. How did, and Connor as well, if you want to jump in on this, how did the whole thing with the cancer timeout and everyone holding up the signs into the Jonas Brothers, how did that come across on TV? And did it seem as long as it did in the building? Like, I got to tell you, it was probably the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in like a big time sporting event before, in that the entire place is completely jacked. And listen, I do not want this to come across as some sort of a pro-cancer take. I think we all agree. We all, appreciate what all these leagues and people do, for, to fighting cancer, helping all of that, goes without saying. And, that in itself, standing up for people that are battling it, very, very cool moment. I just couldn't believe, like, it was in the middle of a World Series game. They pulled out the entire, like, every player is sitting there holding up. They got this sad music playing through the building for like 2.5, 3 minutes. They finish, they get it done, and then they go to a Jonas Brothers performance in the building. And of course, this was all like a big MasterCard thing. So they're holding like the MasterCard flash mics and doing their song. And all of a sudden, like, we went from the most tense World Series moment after 5 innings into this really sad, somber thing for a few minutes, into this kind of misplaced Jonas Brothers performance, and the next thing you know, you're back, and then it kind of took the entire air out of the building, and then the Dodgers took the air out of the building with those 2 solo shots after Gausman had just been absolutely brilliant, rolling down 17 hitters in a row. But I didn't know that it maybe came across. I saw a million people tweeting about it, and it did feel off. Like, what was it like watching the game on television to see that entire thing happening at the end of 5?
So they've done this Stand Up to Cancer for a couple years, and I've always enjoyed it. I thought it's very powerful, seeing every person in the building holding up a sign, the players, the broadcasters, especially with Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez. If you're watching the Sportsnet feed, Buck, battling cancer, Dan Shulman talking about his father. So, I think it's very powerful. This year, it felt a lot more like an ad for MasterCard than a genuine, statement that you're trying to make about cancer.
I felt that way too in the building.
And then it's like, okay, F cancer, here's the Jonas Brothers. And I think that song is associated with the campaign, so that's why. But
okay, it
felt very weird. And my first thought was, Hustler, this is your second time seeing the Jonas Brothers in less than a year, because we saw them at the Grey Cup. But I was getting texts from people saying this feels awkward. And I know there's a lot of people saying that Gausman gave up the homers immediately. He struck out I think he struck out the side like right after. It was the inning after.
Yeah.
Inning after that. So I don't think it affected it as much as you want to think, but that doesn't mean it felt more like an ad for MasterCard, and the Jonas Brothers performance was awkward.
Yeah, I still I don't know whether there's a way you could do that at the beginning of the game or at some point. I don't know whether there's a good time to do it. I mean, you want to have the everybody watching, and you don't want it to have just some little pregame ceremony, because obviously it's a very important to Major League Baseball. But just thought I'd bring that up because there was a lot of discourse around that.
I saw, G mentioned JD Bunkis. I'll let Connor go into saying. He said, he tweeted out that he'll never forgive the Jonas Brothers for Game 2. And will Game 2 be known as the Jonas Brothers game instead of the Yamamoto game? Sorry.
Well, and you know what? I mean, I was just thinking about this as, get ready to get back to Winnipeg. Friday seems like a week ago. There was so much that happened. I mean, that just to go back to Friday night at the arena, I will hand up and fully admit I spent more time in the hangar watching the game on the TV than I did in my seats. But it wasn't one of those special nights in the arena where people were so invested to both things. Obviously, the Jets ended up getting the job done, and against the Calgary Flames. And then there were hundreds of people that stuck around, even with the score being as lopsided as it was, to watch the rest of it. But Connor, I think something that we'll all remember, and I mean, it got a lot of run on social media too, was how dialed in the Jets crowd was in on the updates. And I got to say, Balls and Jay Richardson, I mean, immediately cranking out those highlights. The ovation and the eruption for the Barger home run in the building with Jay's call was that'll be one of those cool moments when we look back of things that stood out, throughout the regular season. Friday night was that for both the Jets and the Jays.
Yeah, absolutely. That added to the atmosphere that night so much. And just to kind of peel back the curtain, we had a bit of a Blue Jays watch party going on in the press box, as everyone did. Everyone's paying attention to the score. Ken Wiebe, noted massive Blue Jays fan, obviously going to have the game on. So we were watching the game in the press box, and we had like 4 different streams going because we're all kind of separated from one another. So throughout the game, the Jays would score at like the Varsho 2-run homer, and my stream would go first, then it would be the next one, and then Ken's would go, and it would just kind of be down the line. Like everyone would realize what happened here. When it came to the Barger homer, again, bases were loaded. So obviously, you were expecting something to happen, whether it was a sac fly or a grand slam, like one way or the other, you were expecting something to happen. I'm sitting there watching my stream, and my stream was ahead of everyone else's in the press box. And before the Barger grand slam even happened on my screen, people in section 330 started standing up and cheering. People in section like 309 kind of to the other side started standing up and cheering. And I was like, okay, something's going to happen here, because people, like, some guy stood up with his phone and was like yelling to his whole section, like, and just cheering. I was like, what is going on? So that was just so random. And I was like, okay, well, something's going to happen here. Let me watch. And then obviously Barger like mashes that baseball and it's a grand slam. So I don't know. I thought that my stream was ahead, but then when the whole arena started cheering, and we hadn't even seen the highlight on the Jumbotron yet, it was like, okay, clearly people are just watching the game in their seats, which made it such an interesting night, because if you were a Jays and Jets fan, you went home very happy with the Jays winning and the Jets winning, and a lot of cheering because the Jets scored 5 times and the Jays 11. So it was crazy atmosphere.
Well, and I can tell you, up in the upper bowl, between the hangar, and they did a great job. They had the, like in that corner around 316 where they've got the big screen on the wall, which is 4 different screens. They had the entire thing devoted to the Jays game. So, I mean, there was probably 60 or 70 people like behind us in the hangar bar, and then another, probably 80 people surrounding that television. So, I mean, you got about 150 people just outside the section. And I mean, everybody went crazy when that one went out of the park and it became 9-2. And I think then you just started to hear person by person, hear the grand slam, find out about it. And anyways, it was that was a very, very fun night. Unfortunately, that didn't carry through for the Jays on Saturday or the Jets on Sunday. Connor, what again, if people want a full breakdown of the game last night, check out the channel for Connor and Tyson Rowicki with our post-game coverage. I was able to get out to Real Sports, and I know there's a lot of people saying, Hustler, go to Motel. Well, it was NFL Sunday, so we were kind of looking for a spot that we'd be able to see the other games. We were able to miraculously get the Jet game on a couple of TVs for basically the second and the third period. And the second period was kind of when Utah really kind of flexed their muscles, despite having played the night before, smashing the Minnesota Wild. Man, this team looks like a very much a contender this year, but opportunistic in the third period, and the Jets just a bit of a step slow at times. Utah comes in and gets the win. Full marks to Utah. Like, it didn't seem like the Jets played a major dud game, but you just had to be better. And, as we heard from Scott O'Neill afterwards, did not like what his team did in the second period after a pretty strong first period against a team that, had just played 24 hours earlier.
Yeah, all 3 of Dylan DeMello, Josh Morrissey, and Scott O'Neill after the game called it self-inflicted wounds. And I think that's a perfect way to describe what happened in this game. The Jets were in it. Did they play bad? Was it a dud? Absolutely not. But when you look at the goals that Utah scored, they were highly preventable, let's say. It was a 1-1 game. The Jets turned the puck over at the blue line. Luke Shen is on his way for a line change. So is Logan Stanley, but he's kind of more the trailing defenseman. Because they turned that puck over, it's a 2-on-1 from the center ice line for the Utah Mammoth, and they convert. And then you look at the third goal late in the game. Tanner Pearson has the puck in the neutral zone, tries to go back to Hayden Fleury, misses him with the pass. Probably wouldn't have worked out anyways if Hayden Fleury had got that. That puck goes all the way down into the corner. Hayden Fleury gets beat to it. Tanner Pearson goes for the hit in the corner. The guy is left wide open in the slot. That guy's Dylan Guenther. He's going to, tuck 30 goals in his sleep for the next decade in the NHL. He fires a one-timer over the glove side of Connor Hellebuck. And that's really the game. I mean, did the Jets have chances? Absolutely. The too many men with 2 minutes left is just an absolute killer. And when when those players mention self-inflicted wounds, you look at the 2 goals that ultimately gave Utah the win and the too many men penalty with 2 minutes left. There's no other way to describe this game than the Jets kind of beat themselves with these self-inflicted wounds. So they'll look to bounce back tomorrow. Minnesota lost at home to San Jose. The day before that, they lost at home to Utah. So Minnesota on Tuesday night is going to be a very, very desperate group. And we'll see if the Jets can kind of right their wrongs and their self-inflicted wounds from this game yesterday.
Yeah, speaking of that game tomorrow, Reem, I heard rumors that the Wild are actually going to be trying a whiteout tomorrow. And they're wearing the white jerseys. I guess they've got some 25 anniversary white jerseys. Jets are packing the Heritage unis to play tomorrow night on the road, which will be cool. But needless to say, we'll have lots more on that tomorrow. And you're going to have Mike McIntyre come on a little bit later on. But we do have to get to some Bomber talk. And I'm looking forward to having Ed Tait with us on the show just shortly in just a couple minutes. And Remo, Eddie, we're going to be hooking up and doing some stuff with the Bombers tomorrow. A couple special guests coming on the program from the squad, getting ready for the playoff game in Montreal. Then I'm going to be jumping on the huddle. We'll do a little raid afterwards and get to hang out with Eddie and start getting hyped up for the road through the East to the Grey Cup now that the dust settled in the final week of the Canadian Football League regular season, Reem.
Yeah, it was an intriguing final week of the regular season because none of the playoff matchups were really set. Friday, you're waiting to see if Calgary is going to get the win, and BC had to seal the deal. Their final game on Saturday, and the Bombers got the job done with a win. Unfortunate how things ended for Chris Streveler leaving with injury. We did get a look at Terry Wilson as well, but for the first time ever, the Bombers crossing over to the East, and I hadn't even looked at the betting odds and they line in, but it's closer than you'd think. And I think for the Bombers, their just cements how well their defense has played since Labor Day. And if they can find a way to not turn the ball over and put it together on offense, I think they have a shot to win this against Montreal. But at the end of the year, Bombers, they don't host a playoff game for the first time in a while, and they'll have to go to Montreal. Going to East has been tough for them. I think they got a shot here, though.
There's a method to the madness. I mean, what do we all want? We want Prairie Armageddon in Winnipeg in the middle of November, and that is possible right now. I mean, at the beginning of the season, you didn't think we could legitimately talking about the chances of a Bombers Riders Grey Cup, but why the hell not? It's going to start with the best performance of the year. That's what it's going to take for them to beat the Montreal Alouettes. We're going to get to that in the fallout from the regular season in just a minute. Ed Tait is going to join us. Remo, if we can, we'll say some thanks to a few of our sponsors here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and then bring Ed Tait in live to tee up the week for the Blue and Gold as they get ready to go out east to begin the CFL playoffs on Saturday. Why don't you head down and visit our friends at Uptown Alley, 1301 St. Matthews Avenue, Winnipeg's premier fun and entertainment spot. If you haven't been there before, you got to check it out. They have this unbelievable facility with a ton of 5-pin bowling lanes, 10-pin bowling lanes, a massive games and entertainment area with great prizes to be won, not to mention incredible food and drink. Great spot to go with your gang for a few beers and a great night of bowling and laughs. Also a great spot to watch the game. Now, if you're looking for something a little later on at night, check out their Bowl and Play special. It's a daily deal after 9 p.m., 90 minutes of bowling and a $10 arcade card for $20.49 per person for 5-pin or $22.49 for 10-pin. They also are great for birthday parties for both kids, teens, and adults, and an amazing spot for groups and corporate events where you simply pick your activities, what you want to eat, your add-ons, and then their events team will help put everything together for a schedule and arrange all the details. If you want more information on that, go to uptownalley.ca, give them a call at 488-0000, or pop down and see him at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue and have a blast at Uptown Alley. Got a move coming up this fall. Holler at our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the experts in the business, the most trusted name in moving for over 60 years in Manitoba. Check out their website at rollies.com for all of their services and more on their story. But click on that request an estimate in the top right corner and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And then let them know when you're planning on moving, where you're going to, and what you will be moving. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around real quick and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they are famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, lean on the gang at Rollies, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. Well, the kids are back at school. We're moving into fall, but have you forgot to see the dentist lately? Hey, listen, if you or your family need a new spot to go in to take care of all your dental needs, head on down to our friends at St. Vital Dental Center. Dr. Terry and his wonderful staff would love to take care of you, as they've been doing for generations of Manitobans, serving clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups all the way to procedures like dental implants. They do it all with a smile on their face, and they'll make your smile look better than ever before. Beautiful new facility, 167 St. Anne's Road, convenient free parking right behind the building. Find out more online and make an appointment at stvitaldental.ca, and make sure to tell them your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And hey, Bomber fans, there's still time to get your hands on that special edition, limited edition Blue Bomber label Canadian Club. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the iconic Canadian whiskey since 1858. As the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they've got a special Blue Bomber bottle that is on shelves now at your local Manitoba liquor marts while supplies last. And while you're there, make sure to keep your eye out for the Canadian Club Club Pack, because we've got a little bit of more summery weather. Why not get the best drinks from the summer? The Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, the Citrus Smash, the Half and Half, all available in the Canadian Club Club Pack, along with the special edition Bomber bottle of Canadian Club at your local Manitoba liquor marts. All right, we are back. Let's welcome in Eddie Tait from BlueBombers.com to get ready for the road out east. Eddie, and then there were 3 teams eliminated. The road to Winnipeg and the Grey Cup starts now. I don't think many of us had the Bombers being a crossover team through the East at the start of the year, but that's their lot. Now it's time to go get it. How are you?
You know, Huss, I'm fantastic. Maybe not as good a weekend as you had, but it was a decent weekend here in Bomberland, and I'm kind of excited about this one. You know, guys like me always cheer for a good story, right? And so what a hell of a story this would be if Winnipeg as a crossover team was able to get, I don't want to say through the back door to the Grey Cup in their own backyard, but it would be a hell of a story to be the first crossover team to do it. And I know we're going to get into this and chop it up a bit, but this matchup this weekend is really compelling to me. I'm just putting together a tale of the tape for our site on this, and it's a fascinating matchup, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, let's face it. We owe Montreal one for what happened in Hamilton and Cody Fajardo. So no better time than the present to maybe pay back what they did to the Bombers in the Grey Cup. Listen, just before we kind of dive into the week for the Bombers and what's coming up on Saturday in Montreal, they wrapped it up. I mean, first off, and we mentioned this beforehand heading into the weekend, but selling out the season. I mean, I know Wade Miller and the organization, had a bunch of comments about it, just how special it is. I mean, I've had people congratulating me on this as if like I had something to do with it other than having my butt in the seats for pretty much most of the games this year. Yeah. But it really is something that I think we can all be proud of, especially the people there at the Bomber office. And, it was kind of neat that, and again, I was kind of following this here from Toronto, getting ready for the World Series game. You sell out that final game, you win that final game. And in addition, maybe we talk a lot about unsung heroes in football, unsung heroes in the operation to get to that point. Carol Barrett getting the nod as well. So there's a lot of great things from the organization standpoint going into that final game of the regular season, even knowing that the Bombers had clinched the playoffs and would not be playing at home.
Yeah, you'll just have to look around the league, and CFL fans will know that you look around the league and there's sometimes you watch a game on TV and the crowd count, you just want to cover your eyes, right? It's tough. There's a lot of markets that have been struggling. This will be another year in a row where Winnipeg leads the league in attendance. And to sell out every game, I wrote a story last week. One of the things that's interesting for me, Huss, is I came over here in 2016 from all those years in the newspaper business. And I mean, I followed this team as a beat writer. I had no idea, first of all, how many people worked here and how much is involved in this operation. And maybe that was naive on my part, but it takes an awful lot to make this work. But when Wade took over, and this is what I wrote about last week, he had, and this is a marketing term, what they call their big, hairy, audacious goal. So in 2014, his first year, full year, he said, we want to sell out every game by 2025. And here we are, and it's happened. And, there's a whole bunch of people that deserve credit for that. Rianne Marcoux, the marketing director, and all the people that work upstairs from me. And of course, the football product's been unbelievable too, right? And so that all matches and coincides and gets you to where you are. But you're the one that lives it more than me, because I'm upstairs behind the glass in the press box. But like almost any time of the year, but especially those games in the summer, like it's fun to come here, man, and watch a game. The quality of the product, the price point, all those things. And my two sons are in their 20s, and they just like coming here and drinking some beers and hanging out with their buddies, right? And I think there's a whole bunch of that has made this, 10 nights a year. It's pretty special. And I salute everybody upstairs because they've done most of the work, and I'm just along to chronicle it.
Well, I mean, it has been, I kind of referred to it all season long as these sellouts continued, that this is sort of the golden era of Blue Bomber football. I mean, we can certainly say that, with winning the West 5 straight times and going to the Grey Cup was a massive part of it. But that doesn't happen, or is not as special without the support that this team has had from their fans all the way. And listen, it is unfortunate the way that the season went and that there won't be another sellout crowd for a playoff game. But now it's time to find a way to get back home for one more sellout game, of course, in the middle of November at Princess Auto Stadium in the 112th Grey Cup. It was a weird scenario, Ed, that they were playing Montreal, and the most likely result of the weekend's action would be a trip to Montreal to play that team. I said all week I did not want to see Zach Caleros or Brady Oliveira, and I thought they did the right thing in because at a certain point, at least from my perspective, I mean, like, what can you prove in that final game of the season against a team you're going to be playing next week? If anything, you want your guys as fresh and as healthy as possible and ready to find a way to have their best performance of the game when it counts, and that's next week. But there was a game to be played, and they did want to win that game. They wanted to get some other guys in. They got it done. A side story which was really sad to see was the injury to Chris Streveler that, will almost assuredly keep him out the rest of the season, and who knows what the future is for him. And he's such a beloved member of this team, both by fans but also by his teammates. And, to see him in tears was really tough. but it did end up, for the most part, on a positive note and move on. I mean, what were the takeaways of the things that were important to you from Saturday in a game that, had limited meaning in the big picture as far as the following week in the playoffs?
I'll touch on the Strevler thing first because I've got a short attention span, Huss, and I'm not sure I can remember to bring it up later. So it was really tough seeing him in the locker room. Everybody saw his reaction on the sidelines during the game, and as he got helped to the dressing room, to see him in the locker room afterwards, he had crutches beside him, and it's an emotional thing. We're all fans, and people can criticize his passing numbers, as in that game in Ottawa a few weeks ago where he only had 3 completions, but he only threw the ball 8 times too. They still won. But we forget sometimes his value as a person in that locker room. And that's a guy that will really lay his body on the line. It sounds cliche, but he has done it for this team in the past. I think he's still a folk hero in this town for what he did in 2019 and the Grey Cup parade too that followed. But that's a guy that this team his energy is infectious. And I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens now on Saturday without him running the short yardage package and being an option to bulldozer over people in those situations. So that one's tough. As for the rest of it, it was a weird game going in because, you take that many guys out of the lineup, like you mentioned, there's 9 starters or 9 changes to the roster, including 7 starters and Trey Vival, the ace kick returner. But you take Collaros and Oliveira and Willie Jefferson and Reddick Cramdy, Pokey Wilson, all those guys out, and Nick Dembski's still out by injury. I had no expectations for that game whatsoever, but I was impressed with what the defense did. I was impressed that the offense did enough to get it done. Special teams was solid. Some of the new guys really stood out. The 2 new defensive ends, Matt Jaworski and Kidron Jenkins, both had sacks. I really was impressed with those 2 guys. They've got to have invitations to next year's training camp. And then, a guy like Michael Krzyk, the fullback, has that 63-yard run. There was just a lot of guys like that stepped up and made the most of their opportunities. And so it's funny, you have to put a little asterisk by that game because Montreal rested Davis Alexander for one and treated it like a kind of a warm-up game too. And so that's what makes this Saturday's game kind of compelling to me, is that when Winnipeg beat Montreal in Montreal earlier this year, it was James Morgan at quarterback for the Alouettes. They're like 4th-string guy. And then this week it was no Zach Collaros and no Davis Alexander. So it's hard to go back and look at the previous matchups to really get a feel for what this Saturday might be about. So there's a little bit of intrigue and mystery to it, which, again, to me makes it even more compelling than normal.
Eddie, speaking of quarterbacks, a lot of Bomber fans were hoping to see some Terry Wilson. They got that on Saturday. Thoughts on what we saw from him, and further to that, how the depth chart will look behind Zach Collaros for this game now that Strevler is no longer available.
Yeah, Terry's numbers, he threw for like 79 yards, 11 completions. He picked off once. He had Jarrett Stearns open in the back of the end zone and kind of threw off his back foot. After the game, he was saying he wished he had that one back. He could have been picked off another time, which probably would have been a pick 6 by Kabian Ento, but he dropped it. Aside from that, he made some good decisions. I thought he was at his best when he was using his legs and got outside the pocket. That led to the one touchdown that he had, a 14-yard run to the 1-yard line. But when he got outside the pocket and could show his athleticism, I thought he was pretty good. It's tough for a guy like that. He's been around for basically 2 years, and he hadn't thrown a pass all this year. And then he knew he was going to get some reps today, but kind of got thrust into the position with Strev's injury. So the quarterback's job is to lead the team to win. And so he did that. The numbers aren't going to jump out at anybody. I would say that it left me wanting more. So I'm not sure if that is a concise answer on a guy that, that you can't build your future around that because there's still so many question marks. But there was some stuff to like. And I'm sure if he had another opportunity, like if he was playing again, if this was the regular season and he had a run replacing somebody, it would be interesting to see what he would look like in a start back to back like that. But some stuff that I liked, some stuff that left you wanting a little bit, and again, kind of still an unanswered question at that position for Winnipeg.
I mean, listen, I think it goes without saying that, it's Zach Collaros or bust for this team. I mean, Zach's going to be in. And, I mean, if there is a scenario where Zach Collaros is not behind center for the Bombers, the Bombers are probably not in a great spot. However, situationally, Strevler's always been the short yardage quarterback. The one thing that I'll say, Ed, is that I think Terry Wilson, while, I don't think we can put the weight of the season on his shoulders and expect him to go out and, be a guy that would win a start. Short yardage wise, I'm not sure that there's a big drop off just based on what we've seen from Terry. I mean, he's big, he's got speed, he can certainly do the sneaks, and we have seen times where he can get outside and really, really run it. So listen, It's make or break with Zach, but Terry Wilson could have a part in this football game in short yardage, something that I think he's very much qualified to do at a high level.
I think you're 100%, Huss, because we've seen in the past with Chris Strevler starts that sometimes it was Terry Wilson that would run the short yardage package. There was that long run he had last year in the playoff game. It's a different look in short yardage than Chris Strevler. Chris can bulldoze guys, and I think that Terry's got a little bit more of a elusiveness to him. And we'll see what Jason Hogan, the offensive coordinator, might dial up in terms of those kind of trick plays at a short yardage. Like if it's second and inches versus, a third down, maybe you let Terry Wilson roll out and throw one. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use that. But it would be Terry Wilson now running that package. And you asked earlier, Chase Artopias, who dressed for this game on Saturday, would come in as a number 3 quarterback because there's nobody else around here right now for them to possibly look at.
And again, just, folks, if you haven't seen it, go to Chris Strevler's Instagram page, a pretty heartfelt message just after the heartbreak of the injury and the way that it went down. And, Eddie, I was saying this to you before we came on. I think that if you were talking about a guy that is absolutely beloved in that locker room, it would be a short list of guys that would be in the category of Chris Strevler. And listen, this isn't going to be they're going to go out and execute and whatnot, but this is going to be a guy that his teammates are going to want to win for him. I think that there will be some level of additional inspiration on top of the fact that they're playing for their playoff lives and the season on the line in this. But as you mentioned, I mean, just a heartbreaking way for potentially a career to end on the play on a non-contact injury for Strev. And as Remis, if you're with us on YouTube right now, you can see that post that's out there at C Strevy. Eddie, fill us in. I mean, the game is on Monday afternoon. How does the week of preparation look right now for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers going into a week where they haven't played this week for a few years?
Yeah, it's the team's been in meetings today. They'll be on the field tomorrow. I'm not sure what the rest of the week looks like. That we are going in a day earlier than usual, so that means there's a full walkthrough practice Friday in Montreal. I'm not too far away from the player meeting rooms and the big theater room where they meet as a team. And a little while ago, I hear this quite often, but a little while ago, there was a couple loud haulers over there. So they must have been looking at big hits or some sort of highlight reel. James Stanley, the assistant coach, often puts together these kind of clips that the players can rally behind. So they're in a good mood. And I wrote about this in this week's Upon Further Review. So we're so used. There's such a high standard with this team. And this team finished 10-8. And we can all find flaws in what some of the wins look like this year, including the last two, the 17-16 win over Saskatchewan, where the Riders rested a bunch, and then what happened on Saturday with a different lineup. But they are 10-8, and sometimes you get a game like they had on Saturday, and I think that can galvanize teams. And you brought up Strev. Maybe that's part of the galvanization too, is that you got a bunch of guys that had their fingerprints on that win on Saturday that stepped up and got the job done. And now you've got a fallen comrade and a guy like Strev. And, Dalton Schoen has missed so much of the year. We'll see if Nick Dembski comes back to practice this week. But there's a lot of things that can, at this point, this team's won 4 of its last 5, and we can criticize how it's looked. It's won 4 of its last 5 heading into the playoffs. And I think there's a power in that. There's a lot of young guys in that room that have increased roles like Trey Vavel, Cam Allen, those kind of guys. And then you've got all that veteran presence. To me, again, this is what makes Saturday look so interesting, is that this might be, one last hurrah for a lot of these guys, right? You've got a group back there that's been to 5 straight Grey Cups. Who knows how long the ride continues? So maybe you got 1, 2, 3 more weeks of magic in you, and it's got to start on Saturday.
I've got a lot of respect for Montreal and what Jason Moss has done. Davis Alexander, when he has been amongst the best in the league. They've got some seriously dangerous skill position players, particularly that receiving core, and a defense that has played at a high level throughout the year. This is a tall task for the Bombers to go in and win in Montreal. But at the same time, Ed, I still have this feeling, and part of it is based on how the defense grew throughout the year. Knowing the experience that this group, most of them have in playoff football, knowing that it's getting a little colder, and in all likelihood, as great as the quarterbacking was with Montreal, this could be more about the running game and defensive football. If the Bombers can put together, and listen, it is a big if the offense can look like that offense that played against Hamilton a few weeks back, and we can get more of the same with the defense from the second half of the season, this is a team that could go in and surprise some people. And I got to tell you, I was talking to Nielsen on the Lock Shop today, and I hadn't seen what the line was. And I was going to guess it. And I said, well, based on paper and Montreal getting healthy and where they're at and what's happened with the Bombers and the way they looked, I mean, this is probably a pretty big number. But I think people, especially the bookies, know that there's a championship medal of this Winnipeg football team in its ID, and that alone is going to take that number down under a touchdown. And that's exactly where it is. For sure, there should be underdogs in this game based on what we've seen so far this year. But I think everyone realizes that they're absolutely, to not be surprised if all of a sudden the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in that game next week look more like the best version of themselves than the version we've seen at times during kind of an inconsistent season.
Well, sign me up for that, Huss. You've sold me. That's a good. I love it. I'm not sure what the line is. What is it exactly?
I think it was
right
5.5.
Okay, that's about right. Yeah, I have no problem with
now.
Okay, 4.5.
That's already getting bet down.
Yeah. Davis Alexander's 11-0 as a starter, and man, I tell you what, he's an impressive quarterback. I love his energy. He's got a lot of Strebler in him, right? In the way he plays and his emotions on the sidelines.
He looks like a fullback.
He does. The Bombers never played them when they beat him in August. He was hurt. So that's a part that's a bit of a mystery again to me. We know what Zach Collaros is like. He's been started a ton of games. His 1-loss record as a Blue Bomber is the best in franchise history in terms of winning percentage. But Davis Alexander hasn't played this Jordan Younger defense yet. And you mentioned the numbers in the last little while. This defense is coming on. And I wrote about this too last week. It's not getting enough hype, I don't think. In a lot of categories, it's number 1 in the league. And there's something different about what Jordan Younger does. And so this will be Davis Alexander's first look at the different looks that Jordan Younger dials up for the Bombers defense. And, this is his first playoff start. And you look at the other side, you've got a veteran guy working behind a veteran O-line. And if the weather gets nasty, you've got a powerhouse running back who had over 200 yards from scrimmage in their win in August. There's a lot of things that could point to a Bomber upset here. And let's face it, that's what it would be. A lot of people in this league have written this team off. But again, it's intriguing to me. It'd be a hell of a story if they can go in there and get it done. And boy, would there ever be some momentum after that if Winnipeg could win on Saturday.
Well, for sure. And listen, I mean, there's no listen, it's the playoffs. I mean, there's no easy games. Every team that's in the playoffs deserves to be there. But there is the thought that the Bombers are maybe playing the best team in the East in the first week, as opposed to Hamilton. Many people will have that. The bottom line is they got to go out and win 2 games to get back to Princess Auto Stadium, and all focus is on this game on Saturday afternoon against the Montreal Alouettes. Eddie, before we go, looking forward to connecting with some of the Bombers tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to jumping in with you and talking a little bit more about the season and this big game coming up on Saturday tomorrow on the Huddle after WST.
Yeah, you've had me on forever, Huss, on your show, and I have always appreciated that. And now it's our turn to do you a bit of a favor and have you on as a special guest tomorrow. So it's going to be fun to have you over in our building here and get you into our studio and on the Huddle set. So it's going to be fun. I appreciate you having me on all this time over the years, and I can't wait for tomorrow. It's going to be fun. We'll have a good time chopping up the weekend's game.
Listen, Ed, the pleasure is ours. We're always appreciative of you giving us your time, and it is literally the least I can do. And I'm fired up to see the studio and see some of the fellas down there and start getting the positive vibes going into this game on Saturday. So listen, if you're with us tomorrow live on YouTube, stick around afterwards. We will jump right over into the Huddle. I'll be with Ed Tait, and we'll talk all things blue and gold and East Semi with the Bombers in Montreal on Saturday afternoon. For more on the game on Saturday and the upcoming week, go to bluebombers.com. Ed and the team have it all there for you. And of course, the Huddle tomorrow, right after WST on YouTube. We'll do a little raid, and I will look forward to seeing you then. Eddie, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate you, partner. See you tomorrow. Good stuff. All right, there's Ed Tait. We do have Mike McIntyre coming up in a few minutes. Again, folks, if you just popped in, you're running, what the heck? Where is Huss? I am still in Toronto, coming back from World Series Game 2. Connor and Remo are going to be catching up with Mike McIntyre in just a few minutes. I do believe they've got some audio coming out of last night's game too, which maybe they'll get to afterwards. They'll dive into the Coolbet lines, the latest on the Bombers Montreal matchup. Of course, Jets in Minnesota tomorrow. So that's going to sort of dominate the rest of the game. Tonight, we got a huge one, obviously. Game 3 of the World Series. We'll all be locked in on that. My Chiefs taking on the Commanders, unfortunately, without Jaden Daniels. So taking a little bit of the juice out of that game tonight. But let's face it, what everyone's going to be paying attention to is Mad Max on the bump. Tyler Glasnow, Game 3 of the World Series. But our focus is going to turn back to the Jets, breaking down last night's loss and looking ahead to the Wild tomorrow. Before we get Mike McIntyre in with the fellas, let's give a big thanks to two of our sponsors, including Princess Auto, where, of course, Princess Auto Stadium going to be Grey Cup 112. And the big question is, can the Bombers win 2 games and get there? Princess Auto, headquartered here in Winnipeg, founded in Winnipeg, now coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon, out for our friends in Westman. And, of course, you can always shop online 24/7. 365 over at princessauto.com. Yes, I did jinx both the Bills and the Eagles with the first edition of the Chud Sports Power Poll on Friday. We were hitting the NFL. We'll have our preseason NHL Power Poll for Chuds before we drop the puck on the season. But it is just so great to have Chud's Power Sports on board with us. For over 80 years in the Ginley community, being a real leader in Manitoba's true power sports superstore. They really do have it all, gang. ATVs, UTVs, bikes and street bikes, but tractors and golf carts, the Argo, Sasquatch vehicles, not to mention, as we get ready for winter, an incredible selection of snowmobiles, ice houses, RVs, you name it, they have it, along with the best and most experienced sales and financing personnel, 130 years combined from the gang there, ready to take care of you. You are always welcome at Chud's.
And adventure awaits right now with your fall must-haves like the ATVs, side-by-sides, personal transportation, getting those snowmobiles ready. And, of course, they got the biggest and best parts section in store. If you are thinking about working on that sled or getting it ready for the season, the great folks at Chuds will help you with the parts that you need and some great advice as well. Pop by and see them in Gimli, leaders of the Gimli community, Gimli and Highway 8 and 231. And, of course, you can check them out online at chudspowersports.com. And also, for those of you that love a great deal, check out truenorthparts.ca. We've got some great clearance opportunities and great deals on there for gear, accessories, and so much more at truenorthparts.ca. One other thing that Chuds Power Sports carries, of course, is Manitoba Battery products. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are the local leader when it comes to everything you need powering up your good times or your car or truck. And listen, with winter just around the corner, you got to make sure your battery's ready for it. Free battery testing at both Manitoba Battery locations, Logan Avenue and Dovercourt Drive. But they'll also be able to deliver those batteries to you anywhere inside the perimeter of Winnipeg. It all is just one step away, a click away, if you will. ManitobaBattery.com. Give them a call or pop by, see them in store. Wake up Winnipeg. Stop overpaying for batteries. Get the best prices and the best service and shop local at your local Manitoba Battery location.
There's Huss. He's on his way home to Winnipeg, not to Los Angeles for Game 3. But Huss, last-minute decision, took a trip to Toronto for Game 2 of the World Series. The Jays didn't win. It was a great night for night 1, for Game 1. Game 2 wasn't their game. Yamamoto got the best of them. But good for Hustler. You know, we posted on our social media on Facebook that Hustler's there, and I had a chuckle. One of the comments, of course you're there. If it's a big event, seems like Hustler's been there. Been at the golf, Grey Cup. It was at Four Nations. It's been, Jets playoffs. It's been quite the year for Hustler. Quite the year for a guy, Connor Rapchak. Connor, what's going on? We're going to go through some of these Winnipeg Jets clips, but it seems like Scott Arniel not happy with the way the Winnipeg Jets have been playing, and you've heard it from them over and over. They just haven't put together a 60-minute effort.
Yeah, and the second periods, he's especially not happy with. We'll get to the clips here in a second, but Scott Arniel really liked the first period yesterday, and that was maybe the lowest event period of the three, I'd say. And I think that's what the Jets wanted to do. They wanted to slow down Utah. They played Luke Shen over Colin Miller. That signals that they wanted to be more physical, slow the game down, and after the first period, that just wasn't the case. Utah got to their game. They were off the rush. Very dynamic team, as we know. And they scored on the 2-on-1 goal. They scored in the third period on a neutral zone turnover for the Jets that ended up back in their zone. Dylan Guenther wide open in the slot for a one-timer. So Utah got to their game. The Jets and Scott Arniel clearly thought they got to their game in the first period, but really not happy with these second periods, which Remis is definitely becoming a bit of a trend here. The Jets letting their foot off the gas in the second period, and other teams are gaining momentum in that period and putting the Jets behind. And coming from behind is not a spot you want to be in with all of these injuries that they have in their lineup right now. Yes, with Connor Hellebuck, it's a lot easier to protect a lead than it is to come from behind, missing a guy like Cole Perfetti and Adam Lowry up front. So Scott Arniel not happy after the game, happy with the first period, but tries to keep hammering the players on the second periods, and they're just not getting it quite yet.
Yeah, well, here's wait, let me get the right thing on. Here's the clip. Scott Arniel talking about the game last night.
First period was perfect. It's the type of game you have to play. It's the first time all year long where we played all 18 skaters the way we need to play for that first period. That was stayed over top people, got pucks deep, defended from the inside out. We're physical, attacked the net, did what we do, got through the neutral zone. Second period is the exact opposite. Self-inflicted, just decided that maybe that was too much of hard work. Didn't think we could do it for the second period, and it's a broken record. Keep seeing this second period, we keep talking about these second periods. all it does, especially in our building, gives the opposition momentum, and mistakes happen. Second goal, we get on the wrong side of people. Terrible line change, back of the net.
There's Scott Arniel after the game last night, and just after that, he expanded further on the game.
They chipped some pucks out, and it was just kind of foot races. We got beat on, got on the wrong side of the puck on the entry, and everybody got their eyes on the guy in the corner with the puck, and their forward came off the bench, walked right down the pipe. That's just awareness of what's around, and those are the type of things right now that, we're making those mistakes, and they end up in the back of the net, or Helly or Combs has to make a big stop. So still haven't put together a 60-minute game. So to me, it's bits and pieces of the third. Like I said, I liked a lot of what happened in the first, but the second was way too sloppy, way too easy for the opposition.
There's Scott Arniel saying it was way too easy. And Connor, how would you grade the 3 and 4 over the weekend? You had the game on Thursday against Seattle, kind of similar, and then Friday they seem to have a bit more jump in their step against Calgary, and then kind of reverting back against Utah.
Funny enough, Remo, on Friday, their best period was the second period against Calgary. They scored 4 goals in that period. And yes, they did not play a full 60 minutes, as Scott Arniel said, but I don't know. I'd give it a C. Seattle is a team that I would expect the Jets to beat. They've had a good start to the season, though, so maybe they're kind of riding high out of the gate here. The Calgary game, definitely a team that you have to beat, and I thought the Jets were the better team in that game. They deserve to win that one. Eric Comrie started that game as well, and they got to start with their backup, which is always a win. And then the Utah game, yeah, self-inflicted wounds. You heard Scott Arniel say it. Dylan DeMello and Josh Morrissey both said it after the game as well. That was a winnable game. It was 2-2. They didn't put together a full 60-minute effort. The 2-1 goal for Utah and the 3-2 goal, both clear, mistakes, turnovers for the Winnipeg Jets that were very preventable. So the Seattle and Utah games, obviously the ones that they lost, are under the microscope. The Seattle game I'm actually more okay with than the Utah one. That one was 1-0 with 2 empty netters. And I thought the Jets had their chances to score. Joey Decord was awesome in that game. I didn't think they got goalied by any means, but I thought that game they didn't beat themselves. On Sunday against Utah, you could argue that they did beat themselves. So 3 games and 4 nights against 3 non-playoff teams from a season ago. You'd like to sweep that. They only end up winning one of the games and not getting a point in either of the other 2. Not a great weekend, but coming up this week, Minnesota, Chicago, Pittsburgh, the Jets have a chance to get right back on track after that 5-game winning streak being halted going into that 3 and 4. They have a chance to get right back on track here this week and maybe get Adam Lowry back this week as well, which would be big news.
Yeah, we're certainly on Lowry watch now as he's practiced with the team, and the team could look to have some reinforcements. Couple, lineup changes. You've seen them switching in and out. The last forward, it's been Chebrakov's turn, and we did see a switch on defense for the Calgary game, taking out Luke Schenn and putting in Colin Miller, and then Luke Schenn got in on yesterday, and it just hasn't been going his way the last couple of games.
No, it has not. And that game yesterday, you can go back and watch WST Sunday Live. Liz and I both talked about the concern that we would have if Luke Schenn was in the lineup for that third pairing with Stanley and Schenn. And that pairing got burned. They were the ones that were line changing on the second goal when the Jets turned the puck over. And yes, that turnover is not great. Luke Schenn was heading towards the bench. In the third period, Luke Schenn had a giveaway to Kevin Stenlund that extended a defensive zone shift. And it only ended because Luke Schenn then took a cross-checking penalty in front of the net. Luke Schenn is fighting it right now. And there are games where his style of play is suitable for the Winnipeg Jets and their roster. If they're going up against St. Louis, if they're going up against, maybe even Dallas, some of these physical teams in the Central, he has that play style where he can play physical, be good on the wall, and thrive in that environment. Against a team like Utah, that's just not the environment. They're fast. They're playing off the rush. They're barely ever on the walls. They have Cooley, Gunther, Schmaltz, Keller. None of these players are dominant physical wall players. I just didn't think that Luke Schenn was right for that game, and that's nothing against Luke Schenn, but you can go back and watch Sunday morning. We said it. I still believe it. We said it after the post game as well. I asked Tyson Rewicki about it. He agreed. I didn't think Luke Schenn over Colin Miller was the right call in that game. I'd like to see more Colin Miller. Having said that, Minnesota on the road Tuesday, maybe that's a Luke Schenn game, and the Jets deem that a Luke Schenn game. But I didn't think coming into the season that Luke Schenn would be an everyday player, and he did sit the second night of the back-to-back against Calgary. Scott Arniel was asked by Liss after that game about the decision to put Colin Miller in, and he mostly just cited that he wanted to get him into a game. It had nothing really to do with the play style or the matchup or anything like that. He just wanted to get Colin Miller in. I'd like to see Colin Miller in a little bit more than just every other 3 and 4 night stretch right now, because I think Luke Schenn is fighting it, and the Jets got burned by it yesterday.
Yeah, has not gone great at 5-on-5 for Luke Schenn. 0 goals on ice, 4 and 5 against. On the flip side, Colin Miller and only 13 minutes. Then these are 5-on-5 numbers, 0 goals for and 2 against. So if you're looking at trade deadline acquisitions, or if you want to get ahead of it, that third pair D, certainly an area to target. Scott Arniel continued after the game, talk more about not putting in a full 60-minute effort.
In game 9 here, it's time to end that stuff. I mean, it's about playing 60-minute games in this league. You're not going to win many, and that's a good young team over there in our division. And if you're not going to play 3 periods, you're not going to have success. And talk to them that what we did in the first period is hard work, and it has to happen each and every shift, and it has to happen from all 4 lines and all of our D. And that's our DNA, is usually our work ethic and our compete. And I didn't like what we saw in the second period.
Strong words there from the coach. Didn't like what they saw, and okay, what the problem is. How do you get it clean up? Can we ask Scott Arniel after the game about that?
There's a lot of ways you can look at it. It's the pucks. Our puck management. It's getting on the right side of people. 200 feet from your net. It's not pinching when we don't have an F3. It's not having 3 guys behind the goal line. It's D-zone, getting on the wrong side of people and then beating us to the net front. Have an opportunity to make an outlet pass or chip it outside the line, fight the next 10, 15 seconds instead of trying to hope something in the middle and then creates a turnover and creates extended shifts. So it's stuff that we've been showing and we've been talking about it, and it's going to be one of those situations that doesn't get any better unless we start to do it on a consistent basis each and every period.
Scott Arniel says they're going to keep harping on the fundamentals to play a full 60-minute game. One thing on the opponent yesterday, I think we have to give them a bit credit. NHL just came out with their players of the week. Logan Cooley, with his week, had the hat trick within the first 10 minutes of the game on Thursday. 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points. What did you think of Logan Cooley? And is he breaking out to be one of the next superstars under the NHL? Kind of under the radar. 21 years old. Was top 3 overall draft pick in his draft year. Plays on Utah, so it's not exactly one of those top teams that you're paying attention to.
Right, yes. And Logan Cooley, right before the season started, Frank Saravalli reported that he turned down an 8-year, $9.6 million AAV contract. And the reaction to that, Remo, told me exactly what you just said, that not a lot of people pay attention to Utah, watch Utah, maybe a little bit more on the West Coast, later time zone. Logan Cooley is an absolute stud. He's going to be a superstar in this league. And $9.6 million would have been a discount, year 1 of that 8-year deal. So I thought it was smart for him to turn that down and bet on himself. And man, it was a good week to have Logan Cooley in fantasy, which I did. I have him and Gunther, so I'm sitting pretty right now. But yeah, those 2 players are so much fun to watch. I saw a stat today that Dylan Gunther has scored 80-odd goals for the Utah Mammoth in the NHL, and 30 of them have come late in the third period or in the final 10 minutes of the third period. Very, very clutch player, scores a lot in overtime. Those 2 players are so much fun to watch. Great off the rush, which has the makings of a very entertaining team. And hey, yesterday against the Winnipeg Jets, who have a great defensive structure, they're missing Lowry and Sandberg, But Utah did a great job getting out in transition, forcing the Jets to turn the puck over and getting the puck to those skilled players. It's not just Cooley and Gunther who are the young stars. Clayton Keller was with the Arizona Coyotes. He's been there a number of years. It looks like this team is finally coming together as not just a young, fun, exciting team, but one that you actually have to take seriously in the Western Conference as a playoff contender.
Yeah, Logan Cooley, 3rd overall in 2022, behind first overall Juraj Slavkovsky, behind Simon Nemec, who's with New Jersey. And I do remember we had Chris Peters, he's with Flow Hockey now, saying that he had Cooley ranked number 1 on his pre-draft rankings. And, it's been kind of a week of a coming out party for stars. Macklin Celebrini, he was the first star of the week, single-handedly winning in overtime yesterday. Five goals, 5 assists in 4 games, 10 points for Macklin Celebrini. What is he? The 4th player in NHL history with multiple 5-point games before turning 20. The others, Wayne Gretzky, Dale Hawerchuk, and Brian Trottier. And I wasn't really on the Macklin Celebrini Team Canada train coming into the season. No, he's too young, doesn't have the experience. If you're putting up numbers and doing things that people haven't really seen at this age in the NHL, I think he's certainly on the radar now.
Absolutely. And we were talking about Mark Scheifele here in Winnipeg. Obviously, he's got 8 goals. He's looking to make his case to make Team Canada. But Macklin Celebrini, he was with Canada at the Worlds, playing with Sidney Crosby. I think that is only going to help his case for being at the Olympics this year. So really looking forward to this race the next couple of months here between guys like Mark Scheifele and Nick Suzuki in Montreal and Macklin Celebrini, all of these players that are kind of on the outside looking in, fighting for those maybe bottom 6 forward roles, because the top 6 is very locked up when it comes to Team Canada. Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, Reinhart, all of those studs. You're not going to be breaking those guys out of the lineup, but the bottom 6 is very much up for grabs with Canada. There's so much talent there. And Macklin Celebrini playing with the Worlds this past year with Crosby and McKinnon, getting off to a really hot start. Maybe Canada is just not going to care that he's a young player, and they see that he's producing this much on the San Jose Sharks of all teams. They think, hey, maybe he could be an asset for us at the Olympics, maybe even in a sheltered role or as a third wheel on one of those top 2 lines, playing with Sidney Crosby, who we just played with at the World. So it's going to be a very enticing race, tons of skilled talent in the bottom 6, and a lot of options for Canada that will have to be sorted out over the next couple of months here. But Mark Scheifele, with another goal yesterday, he's absolutely making his case too.
Yeah, this Team Canada race will be fascinating to watch. And we did have Josh Morrissey record his 300th assist over the weekend. He's a player we'll be locked into. And we're going to bring Mike on in a second. But I do remember in 2006, when they made that Olympic team, there was a lot of wanting to go back to what worked in 2002. And they left off Sidney Crosby, and they left off Eric Stahl, young players having exceptional seasons. A lot of debate if they should have been included. If Macklin Celebrini not picked, well, you have no doubt that he will be an impact player in 4 years, just like how Crosby and Stahl were on the 2010 team when they won. But we're going to bring in Mike for more insight on the Winnipeg Jets Winnipeg Jets weekend and their loss to Utah, win over Calgary, and loss to Seattle. And tomorrow's game in Minnesota, big rivalry matchup. But first, here's Huss.
If you don't have a ticket to the game on Thursday, the next best place to be is at your local Boston Pizza for the first of 82. Of course, Boston Pizza is your home for watching the Winnipeg Jets when you're not at the rink. Pick a player contest for all the Winnipeg Jet games. Your chance to win great prizes. And, of course, you can count on that every Monday night, every Thursday night, and Sunday night for primetime NFL football there as well. We're mixing those Jays games, mixing the Bomber games. And you have plenty of options to get down with your gang in the BP Lounge for those ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, and, of course, gourmet pizzas as well. Staying at home tonight, order it online and get it hot and fresh to your door at bostonpizza.com. I know there's I've already seen a bunch of Taves 19 jerseys around town. If you want to get one of those or just something new for the upcoming season, get down to Royal Sports before the home opener on Thursday night. Of course, they've got the best selection of jerseys that you'll find in town, all customized with your favorite player's name and number, or your own if you want to go like so many people at Bomber games. New lids in, hoodies, and more. And, of course, you've got great Bomber gear as we get ready for this push to the playoffs. Tons of new NFL merch. And as hockey season drops, a reminder that for over 50 years, Royal Sports has been the superstore when it comes to hockey, with every single thing you could possibly need, from skates to skate laces, full equipment, sticks, helmets, pucks, stick tape, whatever it is for the upcoming season you need. Get ready to drop the puck at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. We will get to fan feedback from fans first, and then the three of us take a look at the upcoming NHL season. First, though, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
There's us on his way home from Toronto. We'll be back tomorrow. A special show teeing up the Bombers playoff game on Saturday against Montreal, and also the Winnipeg Jets in Minnesota tomorrow night. But one guy who spent a number of days at the rink this weekend, Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, joining Connor and I for a three-way dance here. Mike, how's it going? How's the weekend? Tough keeping track of the Jets and Blue Jays on Friday, and also a tough loss for the Jets on Sunday.
Yeah, it's funny, guys. Like I covered both Jets-Flames games last week. The first one last Monday in Calgary, and then Friday night in Winnipeg. And I feel like I only saw part of the hockey game both nights because there was a slightly bigger baseball game going on both those nights. And of course, what's the common denominator? The Blue Jays went 2-0. The Jets went 2-0. Maybe that's the key to Toronto Blue Jays success. The Jets have to be playing the Flames at the same time in order for the Jays to have success, which doesn't bode well, of course, for the next 5 games of the World Series, since Winnipeg will not be taking on the Calgary Flames over these next 5 games. They are going to be, there's a couple conflicts for folks who maybe want to keep an eye on both the World Series and the Jets. I guess tomorrow's the big one, with the Jets and the Wild playing at the same time as Game 4. And then should this go to a Game 7, I guess the good news is that the Jets game on Saturday will be an afternoon affair, and then the World Series will be in prime time on Saturday night. So you should be able to space those out. Also throw in the Bomber game as well. Saturday could be, if there is a Game 7 of the World Series, my goodness, Saturday will be one action-packed day for Winnipeg / Blue Jays sports fans. But yeah, first things first, this weekend was busy. As you said, lots going on. It's always a strange feeling when the Jets play 3 and 4 at home. Like, I don't remember a ton of that over the years. So yeah, it felt like we were at the rink a lot. And, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, probably a little disappointed that you only got 1 out of those 3 games, 1 win. And, we talked last year about the Jets' home ice dominance, and they were pretty much the best home team in the league. Don't look now, guys. They're just 3 and 3 at home so far this year. The good news is they're 3 and 0 on the road, and they'll look to obviously keep that going here tomorrow. And then a couple more home games before the schedule gets really road heavy. They're going to spend much of November in enemy territory. They got basically 2 big trips, right? A 6-gamer at the beginning of the month, and then a 5-gamer towards the end of the month. So the Jets will certainly want to ensure that they're playing well on the road. Just don't tell them it's the playoffs, and they should be fine. But yeah, lots happening. I know some people probably a little sour after yesterday's outing, but I'll say this, fellas, the Utah Mammoth, and I know you were talking about this just before I came on, the Utah Mammoth are for real. Like I figured they were going to very much be in the mix for a playoff spot this year. That was before I saw them play a single second. And it's not just the 8-1 start now, or 8-2 start, but it's how they're playing and it's what they have on their roster. They are an impressive group, a lot of young talent. And, I had a great chat with Nate Schmidt yesterday after the game. And Nate was talking about the swagger that he sees from a lot of these young kids and how it's kind of keeping him young. But yeah, they are a confident group, and their time would appear to be now. Like they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, not just this season, but for a few years to come. So the old Central Division just never seems to get any easier, does it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Central Division, and before the season, the previews were all Jets, Colorado, Dallas. You add in, maybe St. Louis, Minnesota. Well, now Utah is 8-2, winning the division right now, 7 straight wins. Clearly, year after year, one of the toughest, if not the toughest divisions in hockey. What did you think of the game yesterday, Mike? I know Scott Arniel was fiery, as you put it on Twitter after the game. Didn't like his team's second period. What did you think of the Jets' 3-2 loss to Utah? And did you agree with Arniel that they lost the game in the second period and they need to fix that going forward?
I mean, I didn't agree that because they really didn't lose the game. It was tied. Right. It was, and that was a winnable game going into the third. Like they lost the game when they gave up the 3-2 goal, in late in the third period there. But I get Scott Arniel's broader point, and I would agree with that the Jets just, for whatever reason, they've struggled to put together, the 60-minute effort that kind of was their calling card last year. They were a team last year, like they'd have a strong start, but they wouldn't take the foot off the gas. And, they would continue to put the foot down and put teams away. And they just have struggled to do that. And I'll go back, and I know you guys were chatting about who's not in the lineup. And like, I'm not throwing this out as an excuse. It's just a fact that they are missing key players who are so much a part of this team's identity. Like, especially Lowry and Sandberg. Those guys are the identity of the team. They are big drivers, if you will, of what this team looks like when it's going right. They haven't been in the lineup. And, there's a bunch of new guys, Tait, Nyquist, Koepke, Pearson. That's a third of your forwards that are completely new. Not so much on the back end, of course, but this team just hasn't looked the way we got used to it looking last year, but we shouldn't be surprised. And, I guess I'll take the glass half full approach here. They've won 6 of their first 9. They're still in pretty good shape. This first month or so was going to be about kind of treading water and keeping your head above water. And it was going to be aided a little bit by a lighter schedule in terms of the quality of competition. So, yeah, I know there's disappointment. They could have been 7-2 had they pulled that win out yesterday. They could have been actually on top of the West in the Central Division had they won that game. But they're still right there. And, the good news for the Jets is returns are on the horizon. Like Adam Lowry is getting very close. Perfetti and Sandberg shouldn't be that far behind. And I think if and when those guys get back, and assuming nobody else goes down, which might be a big assumption, but I think this team will start to look the way we got used to it looking last year. And I think generally they'll be fine. So, yeah, it hasn't been pretty. There's been, some ugly moments. Scott Arniel doesn't wear losses all that well. We learned that about them last year too. Like they were the best regular season team. And quite frankly, guys, he was snarly anytime they lost games. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that he kind of, I guess, ripped his team a little bit last night. They have a high standard. He feels like they maybe haven't met it. I think he's correct in that assessment. I also think it's very fixable. And I'm not, I guess, big picture, I'm not too worried about the Jets sitting here at 6-3 right now.
Yeah, 6-3, third in the Central Division. You look at goal differential +8, still looking pretty good. when do you think Adam Lowry could come back? Could we see him do a conditioning stint possibly?
It was interesting, wasn't it, guys, the comments from Scott Arniel pregame yesterday, where he said that they had a plan, and he kind of mentioned about something that he has to run by management and Adam Lowry. Like, that got the alarm bells ringing. That just screamed conditioning assignment with the Moose to me. I don't know about you guys. I mean, if the plan is, okay, we're going to bring you back on this day, I don't think you're talking about running that by management. And like, that sounded like something that needs to be signed off on. And for those unfamiliar with the CBA, like, a player like Adam Lowry would have the right, if he wanted, to say no thanks to a conditioning assignment. He'd have to agree to it. And obviously management would be a part of that conversation as well. So that was my takeaway. And now, when could that happen? Well, we know Adam Lowry shed the non-contact. The days are all a blur here, gents. Help me out. When did they skate? Saturday, I think.
Yes, Saturday. Right. Yes, it was an optional. Lowry skated in a
Correct.
white jersey. First time. That was the first skate with a regular jersey.
Yeah,
and then the comments were Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, and so initially I thought, okay, well, there's not a ton of guys out here, so maybe we shouldn't read too much into it. But Dylan Samberg and Cole Perfetti were also out there, and they were in yellow. And there was enough bodies out there that the non-contact, that was interesting, to say the least. Here's the thing for the Jets right now. There is not a lot of practice time this week. So they didn't practice today. They just straight flew to St. Paul, Minneapolis for their game tomorrow. They're not practicing on Wednesday. So the next practice I believe they're scheduled to have would be Friday. They're one and only this week. So there's not a ton of time, I guess, to get Adam Lowry kind of up and running. And I do wonder if something with the Moose might make some sense. The Moose, I believe, are in Tucson, Connor, I think tomorrow and Wednesday, right? And then they're back home later on this week, and they'll be home, they'll be practicing, and then they'll be playing a couple games. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are they playing Sunday and Monday?
Yes, I believe it's Monday, because the Jets are playing Saturday against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I believe it's Sunday at 2 and then Monday at 7:00 against Texas next week.
Just, again, pie in the sky here. But if you're the Jets, and the Moose will probably be practicing, I assume, like Friday, Saturday to get ready for Sunday, Monday's games. Like, maybe Adam Lowry, maybe he could go play Sunday and Monday with the Moose. And then if that goes well, maybe he jumps on a plane and joins the team in California next week for that 6-game road trip that starts Tuesday night. And then you work him into the lineup at that point. And that would be around the timeline, right? This weekend is the end of October / beginning of November, which was kind of the earliest timeline. So I do wonder if that's in the cards. We'll obviously hear Ken Weeb's on the trip for us, and he'll get a chance to talk to Scott Arniel at the morning skate tomorrow. Maybe he'll shed a little more light on what the plan is for Lowry. I did see the Jets social media team. They put out a video today of just packing up the heritage jerseys. I noticed that Adam Lowry's jersey was prominent in that video, which I actually got a couple messages, people saying, "Oh my God, is Adam Lowry playing tomorrow?" I put it this way: I'd be stunned. I'd be absolutely stunned if, like, he hasn't even had a full team practice with contact. That would seem to be rushing him, which I think is the last thing they want to do. What that does tell me, though, maybe he is going with them so he can get the skate in tomorrow morning with the full group. Again, just because they're not having a lot of that. But yeah, certainly the signs are pointing towards an Adam Lowry return, I would say, within the next week or so here, if all goes well. And that's great news for the Jets. Be interested to see what it does for the line configurations. And obviously Cole Perfetti, Scott Arniel, I think last week said mid-February or mid-November looks like the logical return there. And then Dylan Samberg probably shouldn't be too far behind him. So yeah, some good news certainly on the horizon for the Jets.
Yeah, and Cole Perfetti and Dylan Sandberg each skated in yellow jerseys in that Saturday skate where Adam Lowry skated in a white jersey. So reinforcements are on the way for the Winnipeg Jets. The comments from Scott O'Neill Sunday, just before we move on here, the way I interpreted them was more Adam Lowry's ready to come back tomorrow, and we need to find a way to like rein him in a little bit and maybe get to this November 1st game against Pittsburgh. So we'll see. I mean, I honestly didn't even consider the conditioning stint aspect of it, but Adam Lowry definitely nearing a return in the white jersey. One player, Mike, with Lowry and Sandberg and Perfetti out, we knew that the top line, Josh Morrissey and Connor Hellebuyck, were going to have to be at the top of their game to start the season 6-3, like the Winnipeg Jets did. Josh Morrissey, there have been 85 players across the league that have played 150 or more minutes at 5-on-5 this year. He's second in goal share. With him on the ice, the Jets are outscoring their opponents 10-3. It's such a big year for Morrissey too. Going into the Olympics, you know, he was sick for that final game last year, wants to make the team again. What have you seen from Josh Morrissey to start this season, really carrying that Jets defense core? And what do you think this is doing for his chances to be on Team Canada once again?
It's funny, because one of the things we look for now with Josh Morrissey is points, because we're just used to seeing him put up big points. And the first 10 days or so of the season, there weren't a lot of points. Like, would he have? He had one, I think, through the first 5 games, right?
Yes. Yeah. And now he's got 7 assists in 9 games. So he's turned it up this weekend.
He has.
Here.
He's had he had the 3 assists last week against, the assist on the game winner last Monday against the Flames, made the nice pass up to Kyle Connor to get that 2-on-1 going with Mark Scheifele. Had the 3 assist game on Friday against Calgary, 2 more last night. So he just had a 6 assist week. He very well could have been one of the NHL's 3 stars this week, but there was a bunch of other guys who also had big weeks. There were some high scoring games in the league this past week, so a lot of points were put up. But I imagine Josh Morrissey didn't miss out on a star nomination by much. But I mean, so it's nice the points are coming, but I would agree with you and what the underlying numbers say, that the strong play has been there right from the start. It's what they really need, as you say, with a key player like Dylan Sandberg out of the lineup, that back end. And, they're leaning on him in all situations. He's been the power play is going great. The penalty kill is going great. 5-on-5 play obviously remains a work in progress for the Jets, but certainly when Josh Morrissey is on the ice, it has not been an issue. And, we talk about Connor and Scheifele and the chemistry they have together, and Vilardi as well with that trio. But don't discount the impact that Josh Morrissey has when he's on the ice with those high-end top players, because he is very much a part of that. He is a part of Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor's success, no question about it. So, yeah, it was interesting that Doug Armstrong was here in Winnipeg to watch Thursday and Friday's games. I don't believe he was there yesterday, but he would have seen that 3 assist performance by Morrissey on Friday. Not that I imagine the GM of Team Canada had any doubts about Josh Morrissey making the team, but if there were, I think those quickly got put to rest, and it certainly didn't hurt Mark Scheifele's cause either, that he continues to be off to this red-hot start, tied for the NHL goal-scoring lead, and really doing everything for the Jets. So yeah, it's good timing on all of their parts, and certainly for the Jets, they are benefiting from it because they needed their best players to play like their best, and they have so far.
Yeah, Josh Morrissey's skating certainly looks next level, looking great on the weekend. You mentioned him being tied to Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. Another player tied to them, Gabriel Vilardi, hadn't scored this year, got his first goal of the season on Friday, was pretty close on Thursday with one at the goal line as well, but seemed to be, pretty hard on himself in a back and forth with Ken there on Friday. How would you see would you make of his season so far? You look at the total, he's 7 points in 9 games. Seems all right, but I think he feels like he's left a couple points on the table here through the start of the season.
I think Kenny got him going. There's actually there's a funny exchange after Friday's game. So of course in the morning, Gabe Vilardi, as he often does, throws questions back at us in the media. It's always a delight to speak with Gabe. But for those who didn't see the exchange, Kenny had asked him in the morning what he's seeing from his line, and Gabe Vilardi kind of threw it back to Ken and said, well, what are you seeing? And Kenny said, I'm seeing a lot of good. And Gabe was like, oh, thank you. And then, of course, he scores that night, has a nice assist on the Alex Iafallo goal. Well, after the game, when Kenny was down in the room doing media, he sees Gabe Vilardi and he says, see, Gabe, I told you I was seeing a lot of good. And Gabe Vilardi responded with a thanks, Weber. So there you go. Kenny lit the fire under Gabe Vilardi. Just he's one of a kind, Gabe Vilardi, and I absolutely love talking to him. It's never cliche, it's never predictable, and yeah, he's got those great hands in tight. Like I had asked him on Friday morning as well. There's a stat to say that showed that he was one of the unluckiest players early in the season in terms of expected goals and actual goals, which at the time was 0. Like I think he was 5th or 6th on a list of guys that should have a lot more than they did. So you knew his luck was going to turn, and it seemingly has, although he had a couple close calls last night that didn't go in, and it's like, oh my goodness, maybe the curse is back. It just lifted for one day. But yeah, he's been really good. That whole top line has, and really it's just secondary scoring, which certainly losing Cole Perfetti doesn't help, and what it's done to some of the lines. And, there's not a lot there right now coming from the other 3 lines. And, you hope that for the Jets' sake that changes soon. And then on the back end, guys, like we talk about how good Josh Morrissey's being. Like, I know there's probably a lot of people out there who've been watching this team who feel this way, but like, I think there's going to have to be an uncomfortable conversation here with Luke Schenn at some point, because he is really struggling on the back end. And, I know he's a high character guy. They love him. He has obviously some intangibles that they like, but like the foot speed and some of the reads, they've been really rough. And, last night had that really poor line change that cost them a goal there, and just it's not working. And again, obviously with Sandberg out, they're down a guy, but and Sandberg's a left shot, of course. Schenn's on the right. Like, I'm interested to see what happens here. Like, they did sit him down for Friday's game. He had a really rough game against Seattle. I think it was easy to sort of sit him out Friday with the idea, okay, you're a veteran guy and back-to-back, so we'll give you a bit of a breather here. I'll say this, Colin Miller didn't exactly have a smooth game on Friday. I thought he struggled as well against the Flames, which maybe made it a little easier to go back to Luke Schenn, but I just don't know what you do right now. Do you go back to Miller tomorrow against Minnesota? And here's where I really wonder, guys, about like Luke Schenn. When you're on the road and you can't control the matchups the same way you can at home, you're really opening yourself up to getting exploited for, and I'm sure opponents, if Luke Schenn's out there taking a regular shift, they're going to try at times to get their best. And that's a tough thing for the Jets right now. And yeah, I think Luke Schenn has been, it's been a really rough start to the season for him. I'm not sure at his age that there's a whole lot more there, like that the ceiling is where you could say, okay, well, we know, he can quickly get back to this. I just wonder if kind of what we're seeing, that's kind of what he is right now as a player. And you keep rolling that out game after game. I think if you do, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage.
So what do you think the end goal kind of is for this blue line? Because coming into the season, Mike, I thought that the third pair with Miller, and then this was pre-Sandberg injury. So Fleury, Stanley, and Schenn, I thought they were going to really play it by the matchup. Has it kind of surprised you that Luke Schenn seems to be kind of an everyday player, except for the easy kind of soft benching, if you will, that you brought up there on Friday night? Has it kind of shocked you that he's been in as much as he has over Colin Miller? And do you think that's going to change anytime soon?
It has surprised me a bit. And I think at this point it would be like, I guess right now I'd be looking at least a platoon with Schenn and Miller. And maybe it's almost more of you're playing Miller for a lot of road games, and maybe Schenn gets some home games where, again, you can control the matchups a little better. Although we just saw he had a couple really rough home games here that didn't work out very well for the Jets. So, I am a little bit surprised. And again, I know the Jets, they talk about his Stanley Cup championships and the pedigree and the experience and what he brings to the room. Like, that's great for sure. But at the end of the day, the game is played on the ice. And, if he's out there and in some ways he's hurting the team, and then it's to the point where you really have to scale back his minutes, like you almost can't play him late in a game in a tight situation. Again, that's not ideal when you're already without like a Dylan Sandberg. So if you're looking at kind of internal fixes right now, really the only option they have as another right shot is Colin Miller. You're looking beyond that, as I know a lot of fans are. You've got a guy like Elias Salamonson, who's obviously a right shot. I must admit, guys, the Jets' schedule has been very busy. I have barely seen a minute of Moose action. I know, Connor, you've probably been tuned in a lot more than I have. I know the Moose as a team are off to a tough start. I can't speak to what Elias, how he's looked in that situation, but I know there's a lot of fans who feel like he would be a better option right now over Luke Schenn and Colin Miller. So how quickly do the Jets potentially pull that trigger? I don't know. And again, there's certain things at play here, right? There's the waiver situation. And, do the Jets, I don't think they want to waive Luke Schenn. I think they want to have him around in some capacity, but he's probably better served if you could find a way to have him be your 7th or 8th guy. He's practicing. He's around all your guys. He's almost, in a way with his experience, he's like an assistant coach / part-time player. Do they risk waiving Colin Miller? There's probably a team out there that could use a Colin Miller. So the waiver situation makes this a lot more complicated. But at the end of the day, it should be about wins and losses and fielding your best roster. And it's hard to make the argument right now that Luke Schenn in your top 6 is your best roster. It just it has not looked that way at all.
Something to watch going forward to, and we can go back to Friday night's game, talking about older players. It was Jonathan Tait scoring his first goal at home. The Jets have to be pleased with what we've seen from number 19 in his return to the NHL.
Absolutely. The points are starting to come. I know he had 4 in his last 4 games prior to last night. Obviously, didn't get any last night. His face-off dominance, and yes, I know there's a lot of people out there that debate how important face-offs are. They can be very important. Mikhail Sergachev tied the game on a power play last night, straight off a face-off win. The Jets win that face-off, which, by the way, Jonathan Tait was not taking. And I am questioning a little bit why the Jets haven't used Tait a little more on the penalty kill to take draws, given that he is, without a doubt, their best face-off guy. Possession on the penalty kill. Now, the penalty kill for the Jets has been great. That was obviously a goal against last night, but penalty kill as a whole has been great. So who am I to question what they're doing on the PK? But yeah, he's been absolutely dominant in the faceoff circle. The hands are obviously starting to come around. Both his goals have been the result of nice tips. So the hand-eye, which you figure might be off a little bit after the lengthy hiatus that he had. But things like face-offs, that's all about hand-eye coordination. Like, his timing is obviously really starting to come together. He'll never be the guy that is flying up and down the ice, wowing you with his speed. But my goodness, you watch him play and the smarts are so evident. He's always doing like the little things, stick lifts and just subtle little smart chips, off the boards or little passes to teammates. Like, it's been impressive to watch. And certainly he's been an asset to the Jets. And, I'm excited to see what this lineup and what he looks like if you could get him with Cole Perfetti, which was the plan, obviously, in training camp. Hasn't happened yet in the regular season because of Cole's ankle sprain. But, there's another cerebral player in Cole Perfetti that, I'm really curious to see what that duo could look like together. And then who, is it Gus Nyquist, who I think he's struggling a little bit here. Obviously, he hasn't scored yet. Is he the third guy on that line? Is it Alex Iafallo? Is it Morgan Barron, who potentially gets bumped, back to the wing, depending on what they want to do with Vlad Nemestikov once Adam Lowry's back? There's a lot of options there. I wouldn't mind seeing Morgan Barron get an elevated look. Like, I think his speed and obviously the confidence that he's playing with is quite contagious. So, there'll be some really interesting options. But to your original question, Remo, about Jonathan Tait, I think he's been everything the Jets could have hoped for and then some.
Well, Mike, we'll see how it continues. The Jets season tomorrow night in Minnesota, rivalry game with, you mentioned, the Wild celebrating their 25th anniversary wearing the original whites. There's a Marian Gaborik bobblehead giveaway as well. So I'll be tuning in. We'll be flipping channels between the Jets game and the Blue Jays game. Mike,
yes.
Thanks so much for taking the time to join Connor and I today here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
You bet, guys. Always a lot of fun. Enjoy the week, and we'll see you at the rink.
See you there. There he is, Mike McIntyre, Winnipeg Free Press on X. Mike McIntyre, WPG. And we did have a lot of, we're going to get some fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your best option for buying and selling tickets in Winnipeg with no fees. What you see is what you pay. Certainly the best place if you have a pair of seats to get rid of them. I can tell you as someone who's had to buy and sell tickets on the odd occasion, utilizing Fans First, so user-friendly, the customer service so great, and you're getting paid the next day right after the game. Fans First been busy for the Bombers all year, and the Jets coming up, no doubt about that. Connor, a lot of takes flying in when we're talking about the Jets D pair, what to do about that third pairing. Boring Sean Monahan says, I think Miller with consistent minutes is a better option than Shen. And Keith Lilly says, let Miller go and use Shen as a 7th D. Rob Kane thinks they're just hoping Braden wants to come here, but having Luke. Stonewall Dave says Solomonson is 100% a better bet. And BA Split says easy fix, Sandberg in for Luke. Just counting the days down for these injured players, Perfetti, Sandberg, and Lowry to return. Not sure where you land on that edition of fan feedback.
I gotta say, Remis, it's kind of miraculous that Logan Stanley is like dodging, like the Dylan Sandberg injury happens and Logan Stanley's not even a question, like that. Is that not crazy?
Man,
I would not have expected that.
Stan getting rave reviews earlier in the season.
Reviews.
Looks quicker. He's got some offensive push. You saw the dangle. I think he's dropping the gloves. I think Stan responsible for some of the biggest pops at Canada Life Center this year. Is that possible?
Dude, it's just crazy that we're 9 games in here And if you told me, yeah, like Dylan Sandberg out 6 to 8 weeks, broken wrist, I would have thought, oh boy, like this is the perfect time for everyone to just pile on Logan Stanley, and he's going to be in an elevated role, and it's going to be hard to watch. And it's Luke Shen to start the season that people seem to be gravitating towards, and Colin Miller being on the bench and in the press box and all those things. So I don't know. I just did not expect us to be here 9 games in to the season with Logan Stanley, fans asking for him to be higher up in the lineup and asking for a different third pairing guy and Luke Shen to be out of it.
Yes, we'll get to some more fan feedback here on Logan Stanley, who hasn't come up, usually a hot button topic. At 5-on-5, Connor, he's been on for 5 goals for, 5 against. That's a 50% goal share. And you mentioned, why is Stan never coming up? BA split, because he's playing well. Phyllis, Stan is doing fine. MC Stormy, Stan's doing well. Phyllis, he plays a simple game. I like what he's contributing. T. Will says, settle down. Stanley is still a question. We just have bigger questions. And Keith Lillies, Stan is playing like all fans have hoped he would when he was drafted. Certainly brings that size element into the lineup at 6'7". Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling tickets by fans for fans with no fees. You know, we mentioned the Blue Jays, Connor, a hot topic. I know this is Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're covering the Jets and the Bombers, but the Blue Jays have really become a huge part of our show here, with Hustler making the, impromptu trip down to Toronto for the game. Another record broken. Sportsnet PR announcing today that Game 1 averaged 7 million views in Canada, becoming the new most watched Blue Jays game ever. Game 2 averaged 6.6 million views or viewers. Now the second most Blue Jays game watched ever. Games 1 and 2 combined reached 15.9 million Canadians. Canada has Blue Jays fever, and incredible what the viewership numbers here for Canada's team, right?
Yeah, I mean, Remo, I'm curious. I just searched up the NHL.com article for the Four Nations final between Canada and the US, which was another massive sporting event this year. And that's actually Canada's team. They're wearing red and white. They're called Team Canada. They got 6.3 million in Canada, and then another 9.3 in the United States for that game. But so the Blue Jays outdrawing Team Canada in the Four Nations final. Pretty interesting. We'll have to wait and see what the Olympics are like, especially with those games kind of being in the morning, kind of at like 8 a.m. here in Winnipeg kind of time, like right when you wake up, those games will be on. So the ratings might be a little bit lower, but yeah, clearly the Blue Jays, one of the biggest stories or the biggest sports story in Canada right now, especially, the Jets game Friday night, if you were in the building, we talked about it earlier. They're playing score updates. Everyone's cheering. Tons of people stayed after to watch the final couple outs. Like it's everyone's rallying around the Blue Jays right now as this series goes to LA tied 1.
Yeah, incredible that you have people. I saw a comment from Shane Payne in chat, says, I feel like I'm cheating on the Jets with the Blue Jays. This is uncharted territory here for many, with the Blue Jays in the World Series for the first time since 1993. And for the Dodgers, with the Jays being the World Series, experiencing a world of going through customs. I don't know if you saw this clip from Dave
I did.
Roberts over the weekend. LA Dodgers manager said, I don't want to get too far into it. I just arrived about 30 minutes ago, and this is late last night. Ben Nicholson-Smith of Sportsnet putting this out. So there was some delays. I don't know if there was intent or not, but man, the international stuff was a bear, but we made it. We made it. And a lot of reaction to the comment from Dave Robertson. I don't know if there was intent or not. Like, he thinks Canada is delaying making the Dodgers trip back to the U.S. harder. Does Dave Roberts know
the States
that they're going back to the country that they live in? That it's the U.S. controls the border back in? I was dumbfounded seeing this, Connor, this comment from Dave Roberts.
There are some delays for sure. Why is he talking about intent? That is just ridiculous. I mean, yeah, like, does Dave Roberts not know that this series is going back to LA? Like, if he said this going into game one, being like, oh yeah, we don't travel to Canada, or we only travel to Canada once a year or whatever, and this international stuff was a bear, whatever. But the Blue Jays have to go through this every single time, Remis. They go from their home stadium in Canada to wherever, to Seattle, to LA. And for him to, bring up, I don't know if there's intent or not, that's just absolutely ridiculous. I saw the clip of him talking about it. And for him also to be like, oh, we made it, as if there was any question that the LA Dodgers would be on time for a World Series game. Like, yes, you made it. Congrats. You made it back into the country that you're from and your home field is. And there's really that's who's to blame here is their own customs, I guess.
Yeah, and he did clarify today by saying Canada is not trying to sabotage the Dodgers. I know that. It was
thanks
just
for the clarification, Dave. Appreciate it. Yeah.
How Canada would sabotage the Dodgers by delaying them going back into their own country, I don't know how they would do that. Canada would have to have some superpowers. Anyways, the game goes tonight, and it is Connor Sports Equinox, the 32nd ever Sports Equinox. You're gonna need the TVs. I had the graphics sent to me. Joe Pompliano putting this one out on X. You have NFL Monday Night Football. Here, let me get this graphic. I can't get this graphic out. Monday Night Football with the Commanders and Chiefs, NHL, Blues, Penguins, Bruins, Sanders. Bruins, Sanders is the Amazon Prime game, in NBA. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games, including the Raptors and the Spurs. And yes, World Series Game 3. So it is a fantastic time of year, many TVs, but I will be having World Series Game 3 on, maybe Monday Night Football as well. Didn't pay a ton of attention to the football yesterday, but I was all
You got
over,
lucky.
so
You got lucky. Week 8 in the NFL was by far easily the worst week of NFL football so far this season. Like, quite easily as well. Just so many blowouts. I mean, I guess the game of the weekend was like Jets-Bengals. Jets got their first win, 39-38 over Joe Flacco and the Bengals. But every game was just a blowout. The Colts were blowing out the Titans, Buccaneers, the Saints, Eagles, the Giants. And then we all were subject to maybe the worst uniform I've ever seen on Sunday Night Football with the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Green Bay Packers. That game had a little bit of drama, I guess, but I will not be watching the NFL game tonight because with no Jaden Daniels for the Commanders, I think we're just going to see a continuation of what Week 8 in the NFL has been, and that's just blowout central. All of these games were blowouts. And I think it's going to be the exact same tonight with KC at home going up against a backup quarterback. I'll be watching baseball. I'll be watching the hockey. Maybe I'll tune into the NBA after the hockey wraps up because I know both of the games are early, but don't think I'm going to be tuning into the NFL tonight.
Yeah, those Steelers jerseys, pretty rough. Aaron Rodgers trying to become, they say, the 5th quarterback to get a win against all 32 teams, and we did see history. Jordan Love tying the Packers franchise completion record 20 straight with Brett Favre. It is amazing the graphic they showed during the game that, majority of the starts for the Packers made at quarterback, Love, Rodgers, and Favre, and is the other one, Bart Starr in there, I'm sure as well.
Yes.
To have around the league, you see just random quarterbacks all over the place, inconsistency at the position. The Packers have had that stability over the years, and they had a rough loss to Cleveland earlier in the year, but back to their winning ways last night, 35-25 win. We did see the Colts with Jonathan Taylor run all over the Titans. Yeah, Buccaneers stomping the Saints. Some really, the bad teams, Connor, very bad. And your 49ers losing. You omitted that one, losing to the Texans.
That was a blow too.
It was National Tight End Day. George Kittle got his, but the rest of the 49ers did not. And I think you're right. The game of the day like Jets, Bengals with Justin Fields and Joe Flacco at quarterback. Just a miserable day of football.
Yeah, like the NFL is obviously king when it comes to sports and the 4 major sports in North America. But like, let's call a spade here. This was a terrible slate of NFL football this weekend. And I don't think that's going to change tonight just because it's prime time with a backup quarterback going into Kansas City. But yeah, my Niners, I did omit them. I think they offense omitted themselves in the first half there. Going into their final drive with a minute left, they had 0 first downs. They went 3 and out 3 times, and the Texans were just killing the clock on their drives. So the Niners game was a tough watch for sure. I'm really hoping Brock Purdy can come back soon here, even though the Niners are at 5-3 and very much, alive for the division despite all of the injuries and all of those things. But if they don't get it back on track here soon, things could go south really quickly. They get the Giants next week. The Giants who got blown out by the Eagles. Cam Scatterbo with one of the most gruesome injuries I've ever seen with his ankle. But the Giants have some kind of young talent up and coming there with Jackson Dart at quarterback. So hopefully next week in the NFL is a little more fun with a little bit more drama and some better games and closer games, because this week was not it.
Not it. And from the American game to the Canadian game, we're looking ahead to the playoffs East and West final. Calgary going into BC securing the win on Saturday, and Winnipeg traveling to Montreal. We did get some news about the Grey Cup. Not this year's Grey Cup here or next year's in Calgary, but the 2027 Grey Cup. The host city officially announced today the 114th Grey Cup will be in Regina. And interesting to note, Connor, the game is scheduled November 7, the earliest Grey Cup ever. What did you think when you saw that the Grey Cup getting moved up a week earlier?
Yeah, I'd be curious for Hustler's thoughts on that, because I know he was a big advocate for moving the season up and maybe starting it more in late May than it does start right now, which is kind of the first weekend in June. And it looks like they're slowly but surely moving towards that. I don't have any really strong feelings on that. I know when the CFL has made changes this year, it's almost a prerequisite to have strong feelings one way or the other. I'm okay with them moving. Yeah, I need to have a very hot take here.
Come with a hot take here. Let's go.
Yeah. No, I'm okay with them moving the season up. I think fans are more inclined, and again, Winnipeg, we sold out the season. This doesn't really apply to us. I do think fans are more inclined to go to a game in early May than they are late October. In terms of early May, if it's 5 degrees, you're coming out of winter. If 5 degrees in May does not feel like 5 degrees in October when you're leaving summer as opposed to entering summer. So I do not mind them moving the season up one bit. I would, if it got into October, maybe that's a different conversation, but it's still in November, just one weekend earlier. I'm okay with it. And as for this weekend, Remis, I'm really excited, not only for the Bomber game, because I do think that there's a little bit of, sleeper potential, if you will, with the Bombers. Schnitzy and I, before the line came out, predicted what we thought it would be. And we both thought Montreal would be about a touchdown favorite. Looks like they're 4.5 over at Coolbet. And then BC, 4-point favorites at home against Vernon Adams. Vernon Adams in a dome where he was successful all of those years with BC, now coming back to BC to take on Nathan Rourke and the Red Hot Lions. I'm very much looking forward to these two games this weekend in the CFL. Sucks that there's a Jets game at the exact same time as the Bomber game. Jets start at 2 against Pittsburgh and the Bombers start at 1. But still a super sports Saturday nonetheless. And if the Jays are playing Game 7, like Mike McIntyre mentioned earlier on, it'll be a crazy day for sports with the Bombers, Jets, and the Blue Jays all playing games. The Jets probably the least important of the three, with the Bombers being in the playoffs and the Jays potentially Game 7, but still would be an awesome day nonetheless. What do you think about this weekend in CFL? How pumped are you for these matchups?
Okay, wait. First, I want to weigh in on the Grey Cup, Grey Cup going a week early. I got to weigh in. I think it's amazing. And no one wants to go to, if you're going to have the game in Winnipeg or Regina outside, no one wants to go to these cold games. The Friday night game against Montreal a couple weeks ago here, you couldn't give
Saskatchewan.
Against Saskatchewan.
Yes.
You couldn't give those tickets away. I was shocked that they ended up selling it out. They had a couple more to go. The weather was terrible. It was at night. It's cold. The one Saturday afternoon this weekend was amazing. That was a fantastic October day, but I think moving it up earlier, like, I don't know if they were worried about conflicting with the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't think they should have to worry about that. We've seen that. Look, if it's going to be in a Canadian city, maybe you should be concerned, but I don't think that at that point there's less teams. It's not going to be a league-wide thing. And the CFL's on one day. So, and I think when it's May, you want to get outside. In October, it's just like, oh no, it's getting cold. So I think it's great that's moving up earlier. And I did see Regina going to be having a lot of stuff that is normally outside, inside for the festival portion of the Grey Cup. So I'll stay tuned to that and what acts. And that's in 2027. Next year it is in Calgary. But
is the Grey Cup ever going to go east again? Remis?
Yeah.
It was Vancouver last year, Winnipeg, Calgary, Regina. I know like Ottawa had one. I think that was 2016. I mean, there's no point in hosting it in like Toronto because for reasons I think we can all predict. But I mean, like Ottawa, Montreal, hosting a Grey Cup. I don't know.
Hamilton was I enjoyed Hamilton,
right?
Vancouver I thought was A+. But yeah, DT noting on X, 2024 Vancouver, 2025 Winnipeg, 26 Calgary, 27 Regina. DT also doing the quick math that if the Grey Cup is going to be November 7th in 2027, the season opening would be May 27, and this year was June 5. So I think moving it back earlier is a great idea. No one wants to go to those late games. And someone shouted out that West Final that was here in December due to the delayed season. Right. That was horrible. I was there. I made my wife's.
Well, yeah, that was the ultimate like Super Sports Saturday because if people remember, it was Bombers Riders and it was super cold. Like it was insanely cold. And then later that night was Jets Leafs and the Bombers and the Jets both won. So that was a fun day. And that was the Bomber game too, where they had like 5 turnovers in the first half and just could knock it out of their own way and somehow still won. Through the cold. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people that went to the Jets game were still shivering from how cold that game was. I still remember it.
Still talking about it. My wife hasn't forgiven me. I made her stay to the end, and she almost got frostbite on her feet. It was a cold one. Here, we'll go to the Coolbet lines. You asked me about Calgary versus BC. BC 4-point favorite. I think Nathan Rourke, he's been too good. I don't want to bet against him ever. He's really coming on. The concern is the defense. Can they hold Vernon Adams? I think the Dome certainly favors offense. Dedrick Mills, CFL's rushing leader, they have this run game. I think BC's been susceptible to that. But I don't bet against Nathan Rourke. I'll take him. I want to see if the Bombers aren't going to make it, I think a Rourke, Davis Alexander, Montreal, Grey Cup would be very entertaining as far as the 2 best QBs in the CFL. And Montreal against the Bombers, I think the Bombers got a shot. The defense has kept him in it. It's going to be up to the offense to play clean, not turn the ball over. Probably going to need a special teams or defensive touchdown. I think they're capable of putting it together for one game. And I think Montreal is better than Hamilton, so I would feel better about them in Hamilton than against Davis Alexander, who's never lost. Those are my takes on the games. No, and
I'm with you on both. Like I also quick. I mean, I know it's early in the week here, but quick look ahead to the forecast in Montreal. Saturday's supposed to be 7 degrees with periods of rain and cloudy. So I would take a bad weather game. I think that would favor the Bombers and their run game and their defense more than it would Davis Alexander, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the CFL, can throw the ball all over the field, is undefeated as a starter. Ed Tait brought it up, 11-0. I do worry about the Bombers, of course, but it's been a question all season long, Remis, of if they are not turning the ball over, they can play with anyone. It's the games where they have 3 or 4 turnovers, 3 or 4 interceptions from their quarterbacks, a few pick sixes, and that's just lost them the game. But the second half of the season, the defense has been a lot better. Trey Vavel is, one of the best special teams, if not the best special teams player in the entire CFL with his return game. If the offense can play kind of mistake-free football, I could see them being in it. And obviously, one step towards playing mistake-free football is having Nick Dembski on the field. I don't know if I'm confident in the Bombers plus 4.5 without Nick Dembski, but with Nick Dembski, I think this could absolutely be a game. And then, you look at the futures as well over at Coolbet. Winnipeg Blue Bombers, lowest odds to win the Grey Cup of all teams in the playoffs, plus 800. Calgary plus 650. BC plus 400. Hamilton plus 365. Montreal plus 325. So the Bombers going on the road against the second highest favorite to win the Grey Cup, and then Saskatchewan plus 260. But I don't know. I'm excited for these games. I think that BC Calgary game has some shootout potential, and maybe, just maybe, the Bombers can benefit from some bad weather in Montreal and squeak out a 13-10 win or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a path. They're going to have to play a perfect game, and we'll see if they can do it. Looking forward to discussing all week. But yes, you and Zach Schnitzer on the WST Bombers Report went into all that. Check it out on our YouTube channel and podcast feed, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. I'm a Spotify guy, but I think like 80% of people are Apple. Going through the lines, NHL tonight. Bruins Sens, they're favored -169 against the Bruins. A huge win for Ottawa on Saturday against Washington. And Pittsburgh has been a surprise this year against St. Louis. Started off slow, might be heating up a little, and that's kind of what they did last year. But the game, everyone talking about, all of Canada has their eyes on. The Toronto Blue Jays, big underdog tonight with Glasnow on the mound for the Dodgers, Scherzer for the Blue Jays, plus 182. For Toronto, how are you seeing this game?
Yeah, I mean, LA is a massive favorite, -200 in a World Series game. I think that number represents the pitching matchup and the confidence that either side has. Glasnow versus Scherzer. There's a lot more uncertainty with Scherzer. That doesn't mean that the Blue Jays can't get to Glasnow and, run up his pitch count and maybe even get to the Dodgers bullpen and ultimately win this game that way. It's just the range of outcomes. It's a much higher likelihood that Max Scherzer just doesn't pitch the same way he did against Seattle. The Jays can't get to Glasnow, and they end up winning, and that's why you see them at -200 with the Dodgers there. But I don't know. This game I'm not feeling as confident in. I think I'm going to be feeling more confident going into Game 4 with Shane Bieber on the mound for the Blue Jays. But, the Dodgers will be countering with Shohei Ohtani, who's going to pitch and also lead off. So that's not going to be very fun. But it's going to be fun to watch Shohei Ohtani do both, because it's just an absolute treat to watch him pitch and then hit. Hopefully he doesn't play as well when he did that against the Brewers, when he went 6 scoreless innings with 10 Ks on the mound and then hit 3 homers as a batter. But yeah, the Jays tonight, I'm not feeling as confident, but tomorrow with Bieber, I feel a little bit more confident. But again, the Dodgers are just so loaded. They're going to counter with Ohtani, who's one of the best pitchers and best hitters in the league.
No breaks in this Dodgers rotation. Holy crap. That's wild. And I'll give a shout out to Coolbet. They've been offering this all series, World Series home run bet insurance. You did it for Game 1 or Game 2. You can get back at it for Game 3. Follow them on X to see the tweet. So you place a bet on a player to hit a home run. Minimum bet $19.93. Reply to the tweet with your username and a screenshot of the bet slip. And if it loses, they'll give you your $19.93 back in bonus bets. I did pick Freddie Freeman in Game 1. I picked Springer in Game 2. We'll have to see about Springer. He took that pitch on the hand. I don't know how his wrist didn't explode or his hand didn't explode from that. He's had a day to recover. And the home run bets, Ohtani plus 152, Guerrero Jr. plus 319, Muncy, Freeman, Teoscar, Springer's plus 408. We saw Varsho hit the homer plus 507, Kirk plus 563, Bo Bichette. I haven't even seen the lineup card. Plus 611.
Schneider announced that he's going to play second base.
He's going to play second. Okay, so and then
I don't know where he's going to bat, but
there's Barger. I don't know if you had to pick one. I think I still like Freddie Freeman at some point, a lefty on a righty. So, the Dodgers are going to score. People get mad that I picked a Dodger. They're going to score runs in the series. So, I do like Freddie Freeman, or I would probably pick Guerrero. We haven't seen it from him. If they want to get on the board, they're going to need him to provide some offense.
Yeah, I like some of the lefties here. Obviously, Ohtani's the favorite to hit a home run. Freeman is going to hit one eventually. I agree. Muncy, I like. I don't like Teoscar, and now that I said that, he'll probably hit one out. But again, the Dodgers are just so loaded. They have 3 Hall of Famers at the top of their lineup in Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. Max Scherzer's on the mound. Yeah, we'll see. For Blue Jays, I mean, Glasnow is a righty. I still like Vladdy the most, of course. I don't mind, maybe Dalton Varsho is a bit of a longer shot against a righty. He had the 2-run homer in game 1. That was a lefty-lefty matchup against Snell, but I still like Varsho in tonight's game. George Springer, to quote Dave Roberts, I don't know if there is intent or not, Remis, with him getting hit in the wrist with that pitch. But yeah, he's an option to hit a home run as well tonight. And we'll see where Bo Bichette plays. David Schneider, he's a batter. John Schneider, the manager, he did announce that Bo Bichette will play second base in this game, but it's just uncertain as to where he'll bat. He batted 4th in the game 1, batting cleanup there. So we'll see if he's back in the lineup in that spot. And hopefully the Jays can get to Glasnow early and get to this bad bullpen.
Yeah, Joel Kevison writes in chat that the Jays have a 5.62 ERA in their career against Tyler Glasnow, who was with the Rays before. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes tonight. Looking forward to Game 3 of the World Series, and no doubt there will be a lot of Jays fans in attendance. Monday Night Football, it's going to be on. Are you going to be watching the Chiefs, who are up there on Hustler's Power Poll, 10.5-point favorites against the Commanders, who don't have Jaden Daniels, starting Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Connor, what's been wrong button? It's been a busy 24 hours for you here, 36 hours. WST Sunday Live. Check it out. Yesterday, you did the post game with Tyson Ruicki. Well done. And you did the Bomber Report with Schnitzy, basically a preview of the playoffs. Way to go, Connor. Putting in a ton of work here, going to all the games. Well done, Connor. So, hey, if you missed any of that content, what I'm saying is here, go check it out here on YouTube or on the podcast feed.
Yes, it's tough work, Remis, talking about sports. It's just so grueling. But yeah, no, the 3 post-game shows over the weekend, Sunday Live, Sunday morning, and the Bombers Report this morning. If you watched any of it, really appreciate it. We had a blast Sunday morning as well. The Jets scored 5 goals against the Flames on Friday night. So our Chuds Power Sports Power Poll was just ranking the 5 goals from our favorite to least favorite from the Jets-Flames game. Go check that out. You can hear our correct predictions about the Jets' defense score heading into the game against Utah. And then, if you want, check out the post game with me and Tyson out of that Utah game, talking about how the Jets kind of hurt themselves. And then Schnitzy and I, of course, on the Bombers Report, previewing this game against Montreal. Schnitzy came with all the research, all the stats on how the Bombers can beat Montreal, Davis Alexander's stats, all of those fun things. So if you want to check out the Bombers Report for this game upcoming this weekend, go check out the Bombers Report. And we'll have the post game tomorrow as well. Jets against the Minnesota Wild. Wild are going to be desperate. They're 3-5-2. They just lost back-to-back home games to Utah 6-2, and then to the San Jose Sharks 6-5 in overtime on Sunday. So Minnesota's going to be desperate. The Jets looking to have a strong second period that I'm sure Scott or Neil would love to see. We'll have you covered with the post game after that one as well.
Awesome stuff. Connor doing a great job on our channel here, Winnipeg Sports Talk, YouTube, podcast, and beyond. Well, I think that's it for us, Connor. We've talked for a while here. Can't fit all this stuff in. Jets, Bombers, Blue Jays, NFL. Shout out to all the chatters here. Without you guys, you make it more fun. We did the podcast that one time when YouTube wasn't working. And wasn't the same. So appreciate everyone who comes out every day. All 193 right now watching live. If you are here, hit the thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. So, hey, when we put out content, you can check it out as well. So there it is. Hustler will be back tomorrow for a full show, counting down to Jets, who will be wearing their Heritage Blues in Minnesota, who have their 25th anniversary white jerseys. So for Connor Rabchak, I'm Michael Remis. This has been another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We'll see you guys same time, 1 o'clock, live here on YouTube tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.